Ever since I made the retrospective on the first Equestria Girls movie, I've had people immediately tell me to make one on Rainbow Rocks as well. Of course, when I originally made that video, I always intended to make one on the rest of the Equestria Girls movies and specials, but I ran into a problem. The issue was that that video was the result of years of pent-up frustration with the blatant leaps in logic and plot holes present in that movie. However, when I finally actually sat down to think of what to make the thesis for this video, I kind of ran into a writer's block, since unlike the first movie, Rainbow Rocks is awesome. I'm obviously far from the only one to think that Rainbow Rocks is a massive step up from the first movie. But then I had to ask myself, why is it better? What makes it better? Is it even better, or am I just looking back to the past with rose-tinted nostalgia goggles? Well, to find out, I turned on the movie to get to writing all the reasons why this movie is the bomb. But then I realized, this movie also has a bunch of problems and leaps in logic. So strap in, and perhaps get a snack and a drink as well, because we shall be discussing My Little Pony Equestria Girls Rainbow Rocks far more than anyone ever should. Our movie starts off with the shot of the moon panning down to show us this building in the human world, which I know may seem like a useless thing to point out, but should a reminder be needed, the first Equestria Girls movie started with a shot of the moon panning down to show us the pony world. And whereas the first movie reveals a peaceful scenery of vibrance, the same shot here is utilized to reveal darkness and people arguing and bickering about. Now, I'm not sure if I'm looking too much into this or if this was even done on purpose, but nevertheless, this contrast shows that this movie will be perhaps much more serious and darker in tone, which is exciting, but we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's take a step back out of the building for a second. I don't think I can let it slip that this cafe has the strangest logo in existence. I mean, what is this even supposed to represent? A spaghetti noodle? Also, sure, this kind of resembles a music note. Let's just say that this is a music store or a music lesson school. But what the heck is this? Anyways, we see that the customers are in the middle of fighting amongst themselves as a suspiciously green gaseous substance floats about. We'll come back to this later. Right now, I'm distracted by this blue man freeloading a seat where a potential paying patron could be sitting. He's not drinking or eating anything. Though, at least they upgraded from the last movie in terms of adding more extras around town rather than just copying and pasting Canterlot High students everywhere. Then we're shown that these three girls are in the middle of disrupting the peace, or at least whatever's left of it, by singing loudly and also freeloading. And while doing so, the suspiciously green gaseous substance gets sucked into the red gems on their necklaces. Then they start having a conversation that just so happens to include every single necessary expository detail.
I'm tired of fast food. I need a meal.
The energy in this world isn't the same as in Equestria.
Ugh, I wish we'd never been banished to this awful place.
Now, if you let me play film critic for a second, this scene is fantastic for showing off these girls' personalities and the dynamics they play off of each other. They do a great job establishing that Adagio Dazzle is the leader of the group, de facto or otherwise, since she appears to be the most knowledgeable of the three. They do a good job of showing us that Aria Blaze, despite her name not being mentioned a single time in the movie, is the constantly bored and snarky one, and they do a good job showing us that Sonata Dusk is the goofball of the friend group. Especially because this is the first time they're being introduced in the entire franchise, and you want us as the audience to be invested in your characters, this exchange does do a good job pulling us in. However, the downside of this conversation is that either this is the first conversation they're ever having where they have to bring up all these key facts. A, they feed off negative energy. B, the energy in the human world isn't as good as Equestria's. C, they were banished from Equestria. D, they don't like being in the human world. Or they bring this up every conversation for whatever reason. Plus, through this conversation, we are able to deduce that these three girls were banished all at the same time.
Being stuck here with you two isn't making this world any more bearable.
Therefore, what Adagio says here,
The energy in this world isn't the same as in Equestria. We can only gain so much power here.
is something that Arya should just intuitively know already, no? But when she says this,
Really? I love it here.
Sonata poses this question.
For realsies? Because I think this place is the worst.
I get that Sonata is goofy and has like zero social cues, but are you telling me that this is the very first time in the history of this little friend group comprising of 66% sarcastic people where someone made a sarcastic comment about loving this world? And also, what was the point of these physics-breaking hoodies if you're just gonna take them off? It was to hide their identities while their pendants were doing magical things. I mean, okay, but then why take them off? Anyways, Adagio notices this thing in the distance, so she races out of the cafe and watches this thing do its thing. Now, we, as the audience, know what they are watching is Sunset Shimmer's defeat from the first movie, but Adagio just knows that this is equestrian magic.
It's equestrian magic.
Which, fair enough, since surely she's been banished a long time, as we'll later get to see in more detail, meaning that she's lived in the human world for a long enough time to just know that this isn't normal. But what makes her so certain that this is equestrian magic in specific? Is that because equestrian magic is the only magic in existence? If that's the case, then her calling it equestrian magic is very redundant, isn't it? Why even specify that this magic is equestrian? Aside from that, imagine being the owner of this establishment. You've got a bunch of people loudly bickering, these 3 random hoodlums freeloading a whole booth, disturbing the peace. But on top of that, they look too sketchy to get them to stop. And now you've got this bull crap going on across the street. Not to mention the suspiciously green gaseous substance. How would you not feel overwhelmed to the point of just going insane? Like, if you're trying to fix everything going wrong in your business, where would you even start with this? But on top of that, why nobody else in the establishment is also rushing out to see whatever the heck this thing is, that's beyond me. Perhaps they're so enamored in their fights that even this thing happening right now is nothing in comparison to the arguments they are having. But how about the people in the surrounding buildings? And did I mention we're not even 2 minutes into this film yet? Anyways, Adagio explains what her plan to use this equestrian magic is.
We're going to use it to make everyone in this pathetic little world adore us.
You know what, Adagio? I'd say you actually did end up succeeding in making quite a few people in this pathetic little world adore you, judging by the fan art and fanfiction people make of you. Emphasis on pathetic. Hold up, pause the movie. Before we get to the opening credits, I think we should take a real quick and brief look at prequel shorts that came out to build up hype for this movie. Why are they billed as prequels when they actually came out before the product they were supposed to be a prequel for? I don't know. But since they technically take place between the prologue and the opening credits, we should probably squeeze these in here. First off, we got Music to My Ears. I'm sure when this originally came out, people went crazy seeing DJ Pond 3 get her first starring role. Though it's clearly just fan service, even if you weren't in the know with all the fanon lore with vinyl, you still got a video of this sick dubstep track going along with a cool gal prancing around town. But before we get into the serious analysis, let me just point out every little thing that probably isn't even worth mentioning. First of all, could they possibly have given the Cutie Mark Crusaders a grosser looking running animation? This is gonna be in my nightmares. Also, this Cherry Jubilee looking person teleports around. That's kind of scary. And why is this green building poofy thing not extruding? Wow, look at these birds. They are goofy and all, but why is Vinyl looking at them so intently? Is this the first time in her life that she's seeing a bird? Also, Heath Burns, a character whose design is apparently so generic that fans just straight up named him Heath Burns as a reference to Heath Burns from Monster High, is going inside this random building, which wouldn't be a huge deal, but the whole plot of this short is to show Vinyl getting to school. And it shows us that class is starting. Shouldn't this guy also be heading to school rather than the sketchy building? At the end, we see that they made Cranky Doodle a teacher at the school, which I guess means donkeys also turn into humans when they cross the portal. Anyways, actual analysis time. This short follows Vinyl Scratch / DJ Pond 3 walking around town. Riveting, I know. Though what it lacks in plot, it makes up for in visuals and world building. For one, there's a theory / headcanon that this man over here is Flash Sentry's dad, since they have the same color scheme and he's a cop, which is probably the human world equivalent of the Royal Guards, which Pony Flash is a member of. In fact, I'm bringing this up because 1, it's an interesting connection, and 2, this actually ties in with a theory I have that we shall be getting to in a bit. Also, these cars got me thinking, what happens if you drive one through the portal to Equestria? Would it turn into a carriage or something, or remain as a car? Is this perhaps the source of where all these RC car toys come from? Overall, I think that having something like this where we see a character walk around the setting where the story takes place, especially in the perspective of a non-main character, is a really cool method of world building. It really makes the world feel more alive and more immersive since we can see how everything goes on, even when we're not focused on whatever the same few main characters are doing all the time. I think it helps that what we're seeing is Canterlot City rather than Ponyville, since this place is so much less monotonous than Ponyville's architecture. This is even backed up when we do see Ponyville in the movie itself. Sure, you could make it work. I think the Smile song is a pretty good example of how you could, but seeing an animation of a character just walking around this place doesn't seem all too exciting. I mean, I'll stop glazing now. It's just that Vinyl as a character meant a lot to me back in like 2014, 2015. In fact, as cringe as it is to admit, I do remember attempting to dress up like her for a Halloween all the way back then. It wasn't even a full-on costume. I think I like stole my mom's sunglasses and I got this like clip-on blue wig thingy. It wasn't even a full wig, it was like a little strip. I remember going to the dance and accidentally breaking a girl's heart and losing the wig in the gym because, you know, it was dark because it was a dance. But wow, I actually like had friends back then. Moving on. Guitar centered. Alright, our first story short. To replace her broken old guitar, Rainbow Dash goes to the music store. Why she brings her old guitar other than to show us that her old guitar is broken? No clue. It's not like she's trading it with the new one or anything. What the heck is the store gonna do with this hunk of junk? Also, let's just mention this now so we don't have to bring it up every 2 seconds during the movie. But the fact that none of these guitars have straps or cables hurts me. I get why, since if the animators can get away with not putting on something that doesn't absolutely need to be there on the frame, they won't, since our brain can fill context clues in anyways. Hence why so many cartoon characters have 4 fingers instead of 5. All to save time and resources, but still, it hurts my soul as a guitarist. Anyways, the conflict comes from Rainbow Dash wanting this guitar, which Trixie also wants. To settle who should get it, they have a guitar off. Then Rainbow Dash cheats by using the power of magic and wins. Perhaps it has to do with their soul's intentions and why they want the guitar, but how the heck is it Trixie's fault that Rainbow Dash has the magical ability to pony up and she doesn't? Though none of this seems to matter since Rainbow Dash decides to pick the guitar she just played instead of the one they were fighting for. Wait, did she just pay $3 for the guitar? Surely those are $300 bills, right? Also, is nobody going to question how Rainbow Dash has wings? At least everyone in the store has seen it happen before, so it might be slightly normal for them, so fine. But wouldn't everyone else in the mall, like, take pictures of it and post it around? Why is nobody investigating all this magic stuff that's happening around town? Though, the short does end with this genuinely funny joke that got a laugh out of me, so I'll forgive it.
$12,000? You'll pay for this, Rainbow Dash!
No, silly. If you want it, you'll have to pay for it.
Next, we got Hamstocalypse now. And holy crap, does it look like this hamster wants to kill me. Anyways, this short sees Rarity taking along with Fluttershy at the animal shelter, because Fluttershy needs someone to watch all these hamsters while she cleans out their exhibit. But oh no, the hamsters start acting wild and won't listen, though this random freaking tambourine falls out of Fluttershy's bag, and she accidentally realizes that the tambourine works as hypnosis on the hamsters, thus luring them back into their habitat. We'll get into the implications of that in just a second. But first, I just want to mention how it's kind of gross considering how many hamsters there are, implying that this is not an unpopular animal shelter at all. There doesn't seem to be any other employees in this building, barring a teenage volunteer and her friend. Since Fluttershy is here literally only to clean the hamster exhibit, who the heck is gonna cover the front desk if needed? This is giving me flashbacks to all those empty backgrounds in the first movie. Anyways, back to the tambourine thing. I know I may be jumping the gun a little here, but the rest of the shorts reveal why each girl is passionate and fitted for their respective instruments, or how they discovered their instruments. This short, on the other hand, kinda just pulls the tambourine out of nowhere and really doesn't tie it in with the band at all. The only thing that really comes from it is that apparently tambourines hypnotize hamsters. So then we must ask, is it exclusively hamsters that this tambourine in particular has a hypnotizing effect on? It's not like you can even say, they're not actually hypnotized, they're just entranced by the beat and they were simply walking towards Fluttershy where the music was coming from. Since they walk past Fluttershy and into their exhibit, therefore these hamsters weren't thinking follow the music, they were thinking must go into tubes. To what extent can we utilize this power to? This short is essentially one joke where Pinkie acts like a drummer while Rainbow Dash is oblivious to that fact, while actively seeking a drummer for the band.
Come on, Pinkie. You're supposed to help me find a drummer for my band.
Does this mean that Rainbow Dash was perhaps open to having a drummer who's not in their friend group? And by extension, does that mean that she was also considering leaving some of her friends out of the band? Wait a second, is that 4chan? The layout looks suspiciously similar, and we all know that this fandom originated there. And Lauren Faust has a good relationship with /MLP/. Also, I think that's just straight up the 4chan logo, so I choose to believe it. And it makes sense too, because Microchips looks like he could be a 4chan user. Anyways, I promise I won't complain about the accuracy of the instrument playing animations, since in the movie, I was actually impressed with how Rainbow Dash's finger placement on the guitar was better than I thought it would be. However, let's take a look at this. How does this drum solo contain the kick drum if you can only play the kick drum with your foot and Pinkie is floating? That almost implies that it's magic playing the instruments rather than the girls themselves. I'm not sure what the implications of that would be, but that's an idea out there if anyone wants to make a theory based off of it. Wow, cool to see that Pinkie predicted the Zam face by 7 years. What confuses me the most about this short though is the way that it ends. It doesn't even end with a joke or anything.
Guess I just have a sense for these things.
So what's with this badum-tis? Perhaps the word sense was a reference to the Pinkie sense, even though that would have only made sense if Pinkie said it? I don't know. This short starts with Rarity trying to push this piano into the school. What's odd is how there's a bunch of other students out here and nobody offers to help her, which may be accurate to real life high schoolers, but I thought the whole point of the last movie was to get everyone here to the point where everyone helps each other. A goal they actually succeeded, by the way. So instead of asking any of these normal people for help, Rarity finds these 3 simps to do her bidding. Now, the big question is, why not use this one right behind you? Wait, how did Rarity even bring the piano to school in the first place? This thing ain't fitting inside a car for sure. Unless her house is one of these across the street from the school, that would mean that she was able to push this thing all the way here from God knows how far. And if she can push this thing all the way here from God knows how far, I think the frick she's fully capable of pushing it just a little further. And if she is pushing this piano from across the street, at the rate that she's actually moving, she must have been holding the traffic here for a couple hours at least. Also, what are the implications of the diamond dogs being human in the human world? Like, we know that when dragons cross the portal, they turn into dogs, but I guess when dogs cross the portal, they turn human? Does this perhaps mean that Winona from the pony world would turn human if she crossed the portal? And by extension, would the human world Winona turn into a dragon if she crossed the portal? Or considering the fact that they're both dogs across dimensions, would they still remain a dog? If so, how is that fair whatsoever? Or is the rule that if you can talk in the pony world, you can talk in the human world? Anyways, the short ends with Pinky suggesting that Rarity play the guitar instead, to which she agrees. But if her friends were at the school this whole time, why couldn't one of them help carry the piano? A case for the bass. Wow, nice CGI house. Anyways, this short involves Applejack finding out that Granny Smith sold her bass to the Flim Flam Brothers' new Everything Under the Sun Emporium shop, which the girls decide to go to. Well, when asked about it, she says this.
Yeah, I sold it to the owners of that new pawn shop. Flibbity flabbity, something like that.
Yet this was apparently enough information for the girls to track this place down, which is pretty impressive. Anyways, this pawn shop is full of a bunch of questions. First of all, is the fact that Boneless is here a reference to the fact that the human version of Cheese Sandwich is out there somewhere? Also, this is the same brain dish thingy from Feeling Pinky Keen. What are the implications of this? If this was put here after Sci-Twi was introduced, I wouldn't put it past her to experiment on Pinky, but wow, this looks like Spike and Twilight's theoretical child. Also, Rarity says this.
Why, you only paid Granny Smith $2 for it.
And Applejack does this. Interesting how this dollar bill is pretty much the exact same design that we saw in Guitar Centered, except with this dollar sign in the middle. Is the cash rule in this universe that if there's a dollar sign in the middle, it's a $1 bill, and if there's nothing in it, it's a $100 bill? I mean, as convoluted as that is, at least there is a logical pattern to it. Okay, because we know that these actually are $1 bills, does that mean that Rainbow Dash really only paid $3 for this guitar? Though, instead of paying $3 for a guitar, she should have used that money to fix this black outline on her shirt. At least the joke the short ends on got a good chuckle out of me.
Come on down to the grand opening of the Flim Flam Brothers Everything Under the Sun Emporium.
Since when do you play the bass?
Well, now that the full band has finally been formed and everyone has their instruments, let's see what kind of songs they come up with. Starting with the next short that came out, Shake Your Tail. In this music video, the girls basically try to come up with a theme for a party that they're preparing, but they all have drawbacks. How silly. There's not much I can really say about this, but how does Twilight know enough about the solar system to teach about it? Did she already know all this as a pony, implying that Equestria has an outer space exploration program? Or did she study this in the short amount of time she's been human? And if she didn't know about Earth prior to researching about it as a human, was she perhaps alarmed that North America has the exact same shape as Equestria, and that there's also places that get rid of the horse puns in the human world? But more importantly, when does this take place? Now, you could say that this is the more in-depth version of the girls setting up the party in the first movie, but no, since this short takes place in the span of multiple days, which wasn't an option for them in the first movie. Not to mention how they had help from other students in the first movie, whereas they're by themselves here. Also, they performed the song as the Rainbooms when they weren't even formed in the first movie. Anyways, funny story about this short. According to the My Little Pony wiki, this was the first to be published by the German Equestria Girls YouTube channel, until the upload was made unavailable later in the same week due to a copyright claim by Hasbro Studios LLC. Wow. I suddenly feel less bad for my videos getting wrongly copyright claimed, seeing that Hasbro does it to themselves as well. A perfect day for fun. Wait, Twilight has and knows how to use a phone? Surely they only did this as the cover art, right? Anyways, this music video has the girls running around a carnival. Wait a second. What is Cheerily, a teacher, doing with Big Mac, a student? I guess it's not explicitly stated that Big Mac is a student in the movies, but still, come on! Does this mean that the human versions of the Cutie Mark Crusaders once tried using a love potion on these two at some... My brain might break if I see one more thing that makes no sense. So Twilight is using a phone. Does she bring this back and forth through the dimensions? What does this become in the pony world? Or is it useless because there's no such thing as signals and Wi-Fi in Equestria? When did Twilight have time to learn how to use a phone? Okay. What's next? Is nobody going to question how Spike, a dog, is doing this? The fact that this entire short is based around smartphones and taking pictures to the point where it might as well be a phone ad. You're telling me that no one is filming a dog doing this? Also...
Hey, did I just come in last?
Huh? No, you came in second. You literally saw yourself come in second. What kind of question is this? You could have either actually animated Applejack coming in last or had Rainbow Dash say that line. Why? Anyways, then we get Fluttershy petting some moles but violently whacking this Discord plush when presented with it. What are the implications of a Discord plush existing in the human world? Judging by how Discord isn't a creature native to Equestria, but rather native to his own little dimension, he probably just remains as a Draconequus, regardless of the realm he's in. And even if he doesn't, it's not like he can't just change his appearance back with the snap of a finger anyways. All that to say, has he been in the human world and been spotted by people before? Like, we don't scientifically recognize Bigfoot to be real, yet he's been quote-unquote sighted. Therefore, we have plushies based on eyewitness accounts of what he might look like. Is it the same thing with this Discord plush? Now, speaking of interdimensional hijinks, this Pinky carousel is horrifying. What else is horrifying is... Isn't it kind of gross how all these phones are taking pictures at very different angles, yet the phones are producing the exact same pictures? Anyways, that's it for the shorts, for now. Let's return to the actual movie. So we get the opening credits played to the tune of Rainbow Rocks. While this may not be the best song in the soundtrack, it's sort of above average, I guess. It's a cool thing we didn't just get another remix of the theme song of the show unlike the first movie. Also, I did want to point out how there's no lines about tambourines in the song, whereas the bass, guitar, drums, and vocals get a shout out. See? Fluttershy sucks. That simple. Okay, a couple things. Firstly, it's 9 o'clock on the dot, and these people are just now getting to school. Also, I didn't mention it in the short, but what are these guys actually doing? What are they digging for? Are they hoping to find gems underneath the school? Sunset left a huge crater under the school in the first movie, and there didn't seem to be any signs of minerals at all, so it kind of just seems fruitless. But speaking of which, it seems as though Sunset and Snips and Snails did a great job fixing the school. But like, are we to assume that fixing the school is the only sort of punishment/discipline Sunset got for doing all of this?
You will be loyal to me.
You're telling me that she wasn't charged with anything? Did nobody do a background check on her afterwards? Why is she not expelled from the school? Was she at least suspended for a time? After digging through some old forum posts and discussions, the common answer seems to be completely disregarding the fact that she banished her own sister for at least 1,000 years and turning Discord into stone where he was left conscious. Celestia is shown to be a very forgiving pony, and since the pony's respective human counterparts have the same personalities, it therefore stands to reason that Principal Celestia just forgave Sunset rather than seeking out any actual discipline. Okay then, explain how the school is fixed. Sure. Assuming the only thing broken about the facility were the walls where you can patch up with some brick and mortar by yourself, I'm willing to let that slip. Between movies, Sunset and Snips and Snails, they work to fix the wall. Fine. But you have to usually call somebody if you want to patch this crater back up. And if you want the concrete path poured again. Not to mention how you need to find someone to make doors in these pillars for you. Surely nobody would be willing to do so, no questions asked, if this is the level of destruction we're dealing with. Not to mention that the government would probably want to know what happened to one of their buildings. This means that either Celestia and Luna lied to whoever was helping put the school back together and to the government, their employers, all for the sake of covering up what Sunset did just to protect her. Or they did tell the truth. Let's examine the second option. Let's say they did tell whoever needed to know the truth. When you tell someone something, there's literally only two options of how they can interpret it. They can either choose to believe you, or they can either choose not to believe you. If they told the truth to whoever they needed to know, and the powers that be believed them, why is this school not shut down or at least under very strict government surveillance? If they told the truth and they didn't believe them, how are Celestia and Luna not being mentally evaluated and still principals of the school? Here, I made this handy chart to make it a little bit easier to follow along. Feel free to pause the video and just look over it. As you can see, this entire movie kind of seems fundamentally broken if you can't answer this one question. Though, to be fair, judging by the fact that none of the prequel shorts have Sunset in them, perhaps she was actually in juvie or something like that during the time. We'll come back to this later. For now, we've got more important questions to ask, such as, where does this drop of paint go? Also, it always confused me as a kid as to why Sunset would grab the brush
Want some help?
No thanks. We're good.
before getting a yes. And I can't see how viewers may see that act as being the result of Sunset being socially awkward. However, I may be perhaps looking too deep into things, but I see this as a nice and subtle way of showing that she's either consciously or subconsciously projecting the want of being needed or wanting to be seen as helpful. Her inner monologues here could have been something to the effect of, I already went out of my way of grabbing it, therefore it takes more effort for them to say no and hurt my feelings and putting the brush back to where it was, as opposed to them saying yes, drawing a line or two and giving me the chance to be seen as helpful. Now, I may be completely wrong. It could have just been that the animators needed her to be doing something rather than standing still, but if it was done on purpose, I think this is the sort of subtlety that instantly make this movie far superior than the first one. And this is the kind of thing that keeps me coming back to this franchise time and time again. Anyways, the girls pull through with their promise from the end of the first movie.
You'll look out for her, won't you?
Of course we will.
And invite Sunset over to help them. And Rarity says,
Quite the eye-catching advertisement, if I do say so myself.
wait, sorry, what was that?
Advertisement.
What?
Advertisement.
Oh, advertisement. Who pronounces it like that? You know, I actually had a teacher assign me a project once. He was telling us to make an advertisement. I had no clue what he was saying until he handed us the actual sheet of paper and it said advertisement on it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid.
Quite the eye-catching advertisement, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it is an eye-catching advertisement since you guys are the only group that's making a poster not just composed of lines and letters. Anyways, then this happens.
And it smells like cake. It does? Did I get it?
Oh, I don't know. Did you try wiping the rest of your face that was impacted by the paper? More evidence as to why Fluttershy is stupid. Fluttershy slander aside, let's see why we're all gathered up in the gym for.
I just wanted to tell you all how pleased I am that so many of you are going to participate in the first ever Canterlot High School Musical Showcase. It's going to be one of the most exciting events we've had at CHS since the fall formal.
Oh, so that's where this gif I saved for no particular reason whatsoever comes from. Wait a second. This reaction means that people literally remember what happened with Sunset. Perhaps they don't remember being possessed, fine, but they literally saw all of this. And after they stopped being possessed, they saw this, with the unusually gigantic crater and magical wings on these girls. Not to mention the talking dog they specifically pointed out.
Did that dog just talk? Whoa, weird.
Therefore, if Celestia did try covering up what happened that night to whoever, are you telling me that none of these kids told their parents what happened? Or at least told friends from other schools? Whatever, like I said, we'll come back to this later. Okay, so now there is a piano in the music room after all, which just means that the Diamond Dog's efforts were all for naught. Unless somebody put this in here after the short, which is just kind of dumb. And it's not like they just left the piano from the short here, since it ended with them carrying it back out. Though speaking of Rarity, fun fact.
You have us, and we've forgiven you for your past boo-boos.
Her saying boo-boos was apparently improvised. We know this all thanks to the fact that there's a director's commentary provided this time around. And I'm genuinely so glad it exists because it's very insightful, and we shall be taking a much closer look at it afterwards. Just so we don't have to interject the initial analysis with, according to the director's commentary every 2 seconds. I'd rather just do it cleanly. Anyways.
I turned into a raging she-demon.
And tried to turn everyone here into teenage zombies for your own personal army.
What is the point of specifying that they are teenaged?
I'd say the whole experience brought everyone at Canterlot High closer than ever before.
How? By making everyone collectively hate Sunset Shimmer in solidarity? I thought they already did before all that.
CHS, everybody sticks to their own kind. One thing they do have in common is that they know Sunset Shimmer is gonna rule this school until we graduate.
Or are you telling me that singing one song in the cafeteria was able to make the entire school population be friends with each other, including students who weren't even present in the first movie where that song took place? We then get our first real song of the movie, Better Than Ever, and while they play, they magically pony up, just like in the shorts. Though, let's talk about these ear transformations. It's not like their human ears morph into the pony ones. They literally lose their human ears and gain the pony ones. How does that, do they temporarily lose their sense of hearing? A knock on the door. Who is it? Oh. What do you want?
I don't suppose any of our friends from, out of town might come?
I don't think Twilight's gonna be back at Canterlot High anytime soon.
Bro genuinely wants to bone this horse. At least in the first movie, he's not immediately aware that Twilight is a pony, but by the end, I'm assuming he's pretty dang aware. Surely if Twilight developed a crush on this guy as the sloppily written script for the first movie will have you believe, surely she told him about her true identity off camera. And if she did she talk about or did she leave out the part that she is an adult in the pony world whereas Flash is a high schooler? Before we get time to ponder upon the marvelous implications of that, this ominous message is spoken through the PA system.
Sunset Shimmer, please report to the main foyer.
Sunset explains,
I volunteered to show some new students around the school. Thought it'd be good for them to get to know the new me before they heard all the stuff about the old me.
if Sunset's plan is to make a good first impression before the new students hear about what she did, that implies that this story really didn't leak out of the school. Are you really trying to tell me that none of this made national headlines? Though, once again, I'll let this slip for now, because we're gonna come back to this later. For now, I'm distracted and saddened by how Sunset gets left on red.
The old me.
Opening up about your heart's intentions only to get silence and awkward smiles in return rather than even a pity good luck, just for them to go back to talking amongst themselves a split second after you leave, only cements Sunset as one of the realest characters in existence.
We've still got a few minutes before lunch starts. What do you say we do awesome as I want to be?
If it isn't lunch yet, in fact only a few minutes before lunch, what are you doing outside of class? Say that these 6 all have free class at the same time. How does that account for all these other people presumably walking to class during this class? Surprise, surprise, the new students Sunset signed up to show around turn out to be the 3 girls from the beginning of the movie. Though, wouldn't it have been like the funniest thing ever if this new student subplot had nothing to do with these girls, and Sunset showed around someone completely different and these girls never showed back up in the movie ever again? Anyways, why does it look like they just walked into the building?
Hi, are you the girls I'm supposed to show around?
We are.
Let me get the chain of events straight here. Judging by the fact that Luna wasn't here waiting with them, and also Sunset wasn't tasked to wait around in the foyer, waiting for them to come, either one of these equally stupid scenarios must have been the case. A. These girls walk into the foyer. Luna sees that through security cameras. She calls Sunset through the speaker to go to the foyer to show them around. B. Luna greets the Dazzlings at the foyer, leaves them there, then proceeds to go all the way to her office just to call Sunset through the speaker. And this is assuming that they have security cameras, because if they don't, that means that option B is the case. Which is very stupid, especially because that means Luna didn't know what room Sunset was in, and this PA message must have gone to every room in the building just in case. And based on the wording of the message,
Sunset Shimmer, please report to the main foyer.
this probably inadvertently set Sunset's popularity down a couple points by accident. Also, this would mean that Luna either guessed and sent this message at the exact moment the new students arrived by pure luck, or... okay, if we are to use the less ridiculous option, that means that there are security cameras that show the entrance of the school. Now, this may not seem like a big deal right now, but keep it in mind, because, you know what, you're right, it isn't a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a gigantic deal. But for now, we'll let it slide, okay? We'll revisit this later.
Oh, we're having a big musical showcase this weekend. The whole school is pretty much rallying around it. I'm sure since you're new, Principal Celestia would let you sign up if you're interested.
What does being you have anything to do with whether you qualify to apply or not?
And what you would have said if you weren't the worst.
You are!
Sonata is super goofy. Nothing further, I only wish to appreciate goofy things when they occur. Sunset deduces that there's something off with these people when relaying what happened to her friends.
I mean, these girls, there was something off about them. I can't put my finger on it. They just acted sort of strange around me. Maybe someone already talked to them, told them about what I did. Oh, so much for making a good first impression.
Okay, what kind of strange actions are you talking about? Was it this?
Those are pretty. Where did you...
I'm sure quite a few people watching this right now would react the same way if some random person you just met tried reaching for a piece of jewelry on you, especially if it was passed down by generations in your family. So if that's out of the question, what kind of strange actions is she talking about? Was it Sonata and Arya bickering?
You'll have to excuse them. They're idiots.
Because what does that have anything to do with their opinion on Sunset? Perhaps what made Sunset think these girls were strange is the way Sonata slipped up and said this?
Hello! We sing like all the time. It's how we get people to do what we want.
Which, sure, is strange, but this has literally zero correlation with what their thoughts on Sunset are. It has nothing to do with this suspicion.
Maybe someone already talked to them, told them about what I did.
That's like a whole separate issue. Of course, as the audience, we know that Sunset's right anyways, but it's like she used the wrong equation and still somehow got the correct answer.
This is it, girls. The moment we've been waiting for.
Lunch?
How could you not love this little goofball? Anyways, Adagio briefly goes over plans to cause fights among the student body in order to harvest negative energy, and that it'll be stronger at the school since equestrian magic was previously established to be present here. Which is when it crossed my mind. How the heck do these girls know that this magic thing they saw from the beginning of the movie came from Canterlot High in particular? They only saw this from the distance on the other side of a hill/mountain thing. Fine. Yes, they felt a sensation on their pendants. But surely that only happens when equestrian magic is actually happening. Does this mean that they had to wait until the Rainbooms ponied up enough times at the school in order to narrow down where it was? Or did they somehow do background research and find out that this was the result of Sunset's defeat? Which in that case, all this magic stuff would be public knowledge. Okay, you know what? We'll come back to this. We've got some bigger questions to ask right now, such as...
But we can get lunch after though, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
That's a very good question. Similar to how people drew Soren with pies due to literally this one interaction.
I'll take that big apple pie!
Well, thank you kindly, sir.
Yeah.
People seem to take this line and run with it, giving birth to the idea that Sonata loves tacos, which is pretty funny.
Just follow my lead.
Or my lead.
My lead.
I know this line was only put here to show that Arya is snarky and rebellious, but I wonder what her lead would have looked like. Anyways, they sing a song in the cafeteria in order to convince everyone to have a battle of the bands rather than the fundraising thing they were originally supposed to have. And throughout their hypnotizing muse, Sunset and the Rainbooms aren't impacted. And because Pinky says,
Oh, they're that kind of off!
it implies that they noticed the weird effects that the song was having on the other students, which makes one wonder, why didn't they, try stopping them? To get to the bottom of this, Sunset theorizes,
Those three are definitely in possession of some kind of dark magic.
is dark magic also responsible for how the cutie mark on your shirt disappears? So the girls go on to let the principals know what's happening. Okay, I know that it's not the animators' faults that joined hands usually look weird, but holy crap, the Celestias look cursed. Anyways, just like the first movie, the principals are completely useless in helping with conflict, but especially here since they've been hypnotized by the new girls who are now calling themselves the Dazzlings.
The Dazzlings? It's the name of their musical group.
I wonder if Arya and Sonata got a vote on calling themselves the Dazzlings.
They came by my office earlier to sign up for the showcase. Even sang a little song to Vice Principal Luna and I.
Don't you just love how that line basically confirmed to the Rainbooms that the Dazzlings indeed are using magical music powers to brainwash people, pretty much inadvertently putting even more suspicion on them? Like, it was supposed to come off as ominous and creepy, but it really isn't. It's just like the most stupid slip-up in existence.
And we think having a battle of the bands instead is a marvelous idea.
Now, the question is, when did the Dazzlings have the chance to do this? If it was after lunch, are you telling me that the Rainbooms slacked around a bit rather than seeking help immediately? If it was before lunch, was that directly after their tour? Or even earlier than that? If it was before the tour, that means that the Dazzlings went to the principal's office, went to the foyer, and then Luna made the PA announcement. Whether they did that or they did it right after parting ways with Sunset, the fact that they did it before convincing the students to have a battle of the bands means that they took a huge risk when planning this, since it's not always a guarantee that the entire school will all be in the cafeteria during lunch. But then again, the Dazzlings didn't even know about the musical showcase until the tour, so...
Musical showcase?
You know, none of this would be a problem whatsoever if there were any other teachers in this movie. The girls could have tried going to some other teacher to tell on the Dazzlings, but, my head hurts. I'm gonna go lie down. Now, before we proceed with the plot, someone called SassQ saw this ladybug here and decided to make this post, pointing out how the very first thing Twilight saw after crossing the portal in the first movie was a ladybug. And in this scene next to a portal is a ladybug, which means probably nothing except for the fact that in the episode It Ain't Easy Being Breezy, where the ponies go through a portal, there is a ladybug. I'm not sure if it actually has any deeper meaning, but it still is a cool observation, so let me know if you have any theories down in the comments. The Rainbooms realize that it's the fact that they pony up that makes them immune to the Dazzlings' enchantments. But because they're beat for ideas on how to stop them, they realize that they need help from Twilight Sparkle. Though, due to the portal to the pony world being closed, Sunset retrieves an old book from her locker, which used to be used as a means to communicate with Princess Celestia by writing messages that would appear in one of Celestia's books. Apparently, Sunset kept this book with her because...
Even after I abandoned my studies, I held on to it. Deep down, I guess I knew I was making a big mistake. and I wanted to still have a way to reach out to her.
Which, first of all, see, I'm not crazy. She can't talk. Take that, Dr. Bartnik. Second of all, yeah, sure, this does give us more insight into Sunset's character and thoughts, but it also makes me kind of die inside since in the fall of Sunset Shimmer, she didn't take the book with her through the portal. Unless you're telling me she went back to Equestria just to get the book after cutting ties with Celestia. Yeah. Anyways, with the hope of reaching Twilight, Sunset opens the book and begins composing a message.
Been a long time since I've written these words. Dear Princess Celestia.
Excuse me, Princess. Where do you want all these books from Princess Celestia?
In Equestria, we see this guy randomly delivering Twilight a bunch of Princess Celestia's books, including the one Sunset just so happened to be writing in. And what otherworldly coincidence is this? It's not even played as a joke. Do you know how many things had to go right in order for this to happen? 1. Twilight had to have books sent to her place of residence. 2. These books had to be from Celestia in specific. 3. This particular day had to be the delivery day. 4. Subpoint. If it was a day earlier, the book would have been lost in the shuffle in Twilight's library already. Judging by how Twilight says this without even looking up.
The library. Third door on the left.
5. If it was a day later, the girls and Canterlot City as a whole would have been toast because the Dazzlings would have taken over already. 6. The delivery pony just so happened to point it out rather than not noticing or just not caring. I mean, if you look at this guy's condition, does it look like his job pays him anything substantial for him to actually care about stuff like this? 7. This book had to be on the top of the pile rather than in the middle where it could have been hard to see. 8. It's even a miracle that Celestia kept this book and was willing to give it out. I get they did this to save time, so we don't have to see Princess Celestia receive the message and waste a couple minutes so she can give it to Twilight just to get the same result in the end, right? But holy crap, like, those were just points I came up with on the top of my head. Anyways, it seems as though Twilight read the words, Dear Princess Celestia, yet continued to read the letter, which seems like a huge breach of privacy, but okay. Then she explains to her friends that it seems like Sunset is describing the sirens.
The sirens were 3 beautiful but dangerous creatures.
Well, I don't know about beautiful per se. Anyways, we find out that Star Swirl the Bearded once banished the sirens away to the human world. Hold your questions to later. Though, the good thing is we don't have to hold the most important one too long since Applejack asked what we're all thinking.
But Star Swirl must have sent them there ages ago. How come they're just surfacing now?
So what is the answer?
I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
Wait, I must be hearing things. Surely you didn't say I don't know to a really good question that, if gone unanswered, is a genuine plot hole in this movie.
I don't know.
No, I'm hearing things, so let's try this one more time.
How come they're just surfacing now?
I don't know.
Well, surely you're gonna theorize on why right after right. You're not just gonna abruptly move on to a different subject. That'd be ridiculous.
I don't know. But if my hunch is right, and it is the sirens who've come...
I'm done. I don't know. I'll show you I don't know. You think that just because you mentioned the plot hole in your script, it makes the plot hole magically disappear? Why not just not bring it up in the first place? Or write your movie to not include this plot hole? You're just... Oh, Twilight. Okay. Oh, Twilight, you're dead. Twilight. Oh, it was a good princess. It was a good princess. I don't know. I'll show you. I don't know. Anyways, Twilight builds this contraption which allows her to transfer between the two worlds at any time and gets ready to go. And Spike says this.
But I still get to go, right? You never know when you might need your trusty assistant.
Despite the fact that he literally doesn't even do anything throughout the entire movie, that he might as well literally not have taken along.
I'm starting to think she's not coming.
Good thing no one else was around the statue to witness this going on. Anyways, when Sunset tries helping Twilight up, Twilight hesitates for a while and... I think that this gives the ending to the first movie more meaning, since even though it concluded with Twilight basically giving Sunset a second chance and getting the rest of the Rainbooms to be her friend, she's still somewhat untrusting of her. Even though it's a subtler detail, it really does make these characters' dynamics more realistic, I suppose would be the word. Anyways, they all go to the cafe to play catch-up.
A certain blue-haired guitar player was just asking about you.
I mean, it's one thing when the high schooler has a crush on the older adult princess, right? Younger people have celebrity crushes all the time. However, it's a whole other thing when the older adult princess acts like this at the idea of the high schooler.
Flash Sentry was asking about me?
Anyways, Twilight comes up with the genius plan to take the Dazzlings down during a party thrown for the bands participating in the battle.
Looks like we've got a party to crash.
Judging by how nobody's in a friendly mood right now, I wonder who set this party up. It couldn't have been Pinky, could it? When would she have had the time to? Don't you dare hit my boy Snips.
I'm gonna get more punch.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Wow, way to make Flash never be able to trust the element of honesty ever again. Hey, how come Twilight has her bag now? She didn't have one when coming out of the portal, and like I made a big deal out of it during the last movie, the only reason she had one to begin with in the human world was because she took this bag from the pony world.
It's like there's some kind of underlying tension that could bubble to the surface at any minute.
It's a fruit punch, isn't it? I knew I used too much grape juice.
That's not grape. How goofy.
It's not the fruit punch, it's us.
But the punch is awful too.
What do you know about good fruit punch?
Wait, is the implication that the Dazzling set up this party? Sorry, I know it's not a big deal. It's just, I really don't want to get to this next part.
Friendship is magic!
Yeah, that's a little, cringe. Anyways, all this discourse makes more suspiciously green gaseous substances arise once more. Alright, I can't dance around this topic anymore. Why would they choose green out of all colors? I know it's a reference to how evil magic is depicted as green in the show, but like, come on! All these scenes, especially at the beginning, look like someone ripped a fat one, and they're all arguing about who cut the cheese. In fact, sure, in retrospect, watching this movie for the billionth time, I can instantly tell you what's going on here, but like, I wouldn't be too surprised if people watching this for the first time were a little confused on what this could possibly be. And the fact that the Dazzlings make this face while the substance is traveling upward to their face, that's not doing us any favors. So, in conclusion, what were they thinking?
The sirens' magic comes from their music. So maybe you have to use the same kind of magic to defeat them.
After all that, they conclude that a counterspell in the form of a song is what needs to be performed in order to counterattack the Dazzlings on their own turf.
You mean like a song?
Oh hey look, a goofy-looking Fluttershy. That's kind of funny. The girls invite Twilight to be the Rainboom's new singer, which upsets Sunset since she's left out. Which is depressing, since that's essentially the exact same vibe as your friends making plans without you right in front of you. Pinky then proposes the idea of having a slumber party.
Slumber party in my house!
And it would have been funny, yet extra depressing if they left Sunset out of that too, especially with how happy she looks here. Anyways, then they... Wait a second. Are these pajamas all custom made, or does her cutie mark automatically appear on all of your clothes once you discover it in this world? And judging by the fact that Twilight's isn't comprised of her cutie mark, and the portal probably didn't just magically generate her some pajamas, that probably means that one of these girls lent them one of theirs. Does that mean that their cutie marks appear on some of their clothes but not all of them? Wow, did Rainbow Dash just break Pinky's $800 game system? Also, don't worry, I'm not ignoring this, we'll just come back to it later. While the girls are all asleep, Twilight stays up trying to come up with the counterspell. Then Sunset wakes up and the two have a heartfelt conversation, which isn't really in need of analysis or being torn apart because I think it's pretty straightforward. But with the way that it sits here, I just think that it could have been a little more. I think that they should have put in a couple lines of Sunset being remorseful for what she did to Twilight in the first movie. Like, Sunset never really directly apologized to Twilight for being mean and threatening to kill Spike. I mean, she did this in the first movie.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But that was probably just a result of adrenaline and social pressure and being caught up in the moment as opposed to like an actual genuine remorseful apology. But like, on one hand, whatever, because Sunset is awesome and she can get away with anything in my eyes. But because this is like the first and only time Sunset and Twilight are having a one-on-one conversation in this movie, I think a personal apology was in order. Mainly to have a storyline about genuine repentance rather than just blind forgiveness. So I just wish that they would have done something a little bit more. Also, maybe talk about Sunset's past in Equestria. Maybe Sunset could ask about how Celestia is doing. Maybe she could have talked about whether she prefers being a human over a pony, or if she misses being a pony. Or they could have bonded over what it feels like to originally be a pony, having to get used to human limbs and stuff. Or if she misses using magic. Or like literally anything to expand on the lore rather than just redundantly examining their feelings that all become apparent from watching the rest of the movie anyway. Anyways, then Maud Pie comes out and...
Boulder was hungry.
Wow, cool to see that the nutrition information disappears when you flip the box.
I still can't get over the fact that she's related to Pinkie Pie.
You and me both.
I think it's both funny and kind of sad how this frame has since gone on to become thumbnail bait for the official My Little Pony YouTube channel. I mean, it's one thing if they used this as their thumbnail, but it's the fact that they went out of their way to Photoshop them closer. Sneaky. The next morning, the Rainbooms decide to practice the song that Twilight wrote last night, and wow, Rainbow Dash's ears genuinely just disappear and don't pop back out right away. I guess that really does mean that you go deaf for a few seconds when ponying up.
That sounded way better than the last 5 times you played it.
Nope.
The juxtaposition of Spike and Big Mac makes me wonder if their little D&D club in the human world is like Big Mac, Spike the dog, and the Discord plush. Also, did we just seriously, just give up on questioning why there's a talking dog? Also, is there any reason for them to be practicing at Applejack's place aside from the 2 gigs involving her family members? Traditionally, band members want to practice at the drummer's place since the drums are the least portable instrument, and they were already at the drummer's place. Perhaps there's just simply no room to practice at Pinky's house, which, okay, fine, fair enough. But holy crap, it must be so inconvenient moving this from practice to practice. Unless if they just keep the drum set here, meaning that Pinky would have to go over to Applejack's house whenever she wants to practice. You know what? Whatever. To stall more time for Twilight to finish her spell, the Rainbooms decide to compete in the battle of the bands for real.
And we stay alive until the finals. We unleash the counterspell then!
And even though Twilight is struggling to come up with it, and is anxious that she will let everybody down by not completing it, Spike basically adds more fuel to the fire by saying this.
You'll have figured it out by the finals, right? Of course she will. Twilight Sparkle's never met a problem she couldn't solve.
And giving these looks at her. Remember, this is the same Spike, the exact same character, who said this in the first movie.
Twilight, these girls rallied around you because they saw what was in your heart. They aren't going to feel any differently about you when they find out you're a pony princess in Equestria.
Why and how did he go from being super helpful and wise to being incredibly oblivious to our best friend / sister figure? Was he dropped on the head between the movies? Anyways, this is basically the point where the movie becomes kind of monotonous. Until the very end, at least. For example, we get about a full minute of Snips and Snails rapping.
Oh yeah, Snips and Snails.
Is it funny? Sure, maybe a little elongated to really give us the full punch of what this joke could have been, but sure, I'm glad it's in here. Am I upset that it was cut during TV airings of the movie to keep the runtime shorter? Of course I am. I think everybody in existence should see this. But does it advance the plot any further? No, it does not. Because there's no story being told here. And unfortunately, that's basically the rest of the movie. It's pretty much just song after song after song. Though I'll elaborate more as we go on. At least we get these priceless reactions from Sunset and Sonata.
We will be performing in front of an audience. I'm not going to wear something fabulous.
The Rainbooms performed their song Shake Your Tail, which, as a reminder, we heard already in one of the prequel shorts. Usually, I would find this kind of lazy, but it was actually smart to reuse the song for a couple reasons, such as how, because we already heard it, it doesn't matter if they mess it up, and the whole inclusion of this performance was to show everything getting messed up anyway.
Do your thing, you know you're an original.
So it would have probably been worse if they made a new song specifically to get ruined like this. That, and as much as I do like the song, the lyrics are kind of bad. And no, I'm not complaining about the repetitiveness because I think it's fine. It's like a party song anyways. But let's look at these lyrics. First of all, rhyming time with crime is something that beginner songwriters do. But the line itself literally makes no sense. Laugh it off, no one said it is a crime. Okay, nobody said it wasn't either. But 2 lines after, they say, your ideas are so funny that they're criminal. So these funny ideas that make you laugh it off are a crime? What is this contradiction? And what are all these references to crime and criminals? It's so specific. Anyways, do the principals just not notice people messing with their show, much less one of their students crying? Or do they just think that this is all part of the performance? Or are they not doing anything because they are still within the siren spell until either the principals or the Dazzlings die? So speaking of which, why is this animation of them clapping so funny? For some reason, Sunset decides to wait in this dark hallway, and as a result, gets completely roasted by the Dazzlings.
You're never gonna get away with this.
Why? Because you didn't?
I've changed. I'm in a much better place now.
Waiting in the wings while your friends have all the fun.
Not only are the roasts incredible, this scene is a nice parallel to the part in the first movie where Sunset roasts Twilight in presumably the same dark hallway.
Pop quiz. What happens when you bring an element of harmony into an alternate world?
You don't know?
Seriously?
And while Sunset preyed upon Twilight's insecurities, the situation has now flipped around to make the Dazzlings prey upon Sunset's insecurities. I mean, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you may or may not have picked up on the fact that I like Sunset quite a bit, but I can't deny when a good burn is a good burn.
Too bad. So sad.
The Dazzlings then performed the song Under Our Spell. Why is Luna drawing a heart and employing these bedroom eyes while looking at these high schoolers? Sure, they are like multi-thousand-year-old seahorse-looking things, but she doesn't know that. In her perspective, they're just normal high school kids. First Twilight, now Luna. Anyways, this song is used as a montage to show all the competing bands getting eliminated, which is a nice touch, and some of these band logos go pretty hard, and I want them as stickers or pins or whatever. Now, the only real issue I have with this scene at all is the fact that the Cutie Mark Crusaders somehow beat Derpy's band in the talent show. Judging by the Crusaders' outfit being a reference to their outfit in the Showstoppers, where they played this ear-bleedingly out-of-key song.
Look here, I'm 3 little ponies.
And we know that this song exists in the Equestria Girls universe and the girls are proud of it. We can safely probably assume that they played that song for this talent show. And while I do enjoy the song, it's not meant to be musically good. Derpy's band's song, on the other hand, is objectively amazing. So it's a real travesty that Derpy's band came in last instead of making it to the finals.
This is it. Last round and you're in the finals. Unless you think the counterspell is ready to be played now.
And the battle of the bands come down to the semifinals and...
I was just wondering, we haven't played any of my songs yet, and...
Are you telling me that you're choosing which songs to play so impulsively that you can just suggest one last minute? Or does Fluttershy just want to throw the rest of the band off by requesting to play a song they haven't even been practicing for in a life or death situation? I mean, judging by these lines...
I really like the song you wrote for the Rainbooms. Thanks. Hopefully one day we'll get a chance to play it. I was wondering if we could maybe play the song I wrote. We'll get to it. I write songs, you just never let us play any of them.
It doesn't seem like they've ever practiced one of her songs, so she's just trying to screw everyone over. Shame on you. Wait, who's controlling the lights if everyone hates each other and Sunset's just watching from the side? They seemed to have zero security in regards to lights earlier, and I refuse to believe that A, there's no one trying to mess with the lights anymore, and B, the Rainbooms got someone to actually agree to do light works for them. This would have been as easy as making Sunset or Spike be the one to control the lights. Though I guess the former wouldn't be possible since Sunset realizes that Rainbow Dash is magicking up, which the Dazzlings can't know about. So she knocks her over, causing everyone to think that she did it out of meanness.
Now that's the bad girl we love to hate.
She was still trouble.
Including the principals, who pretty much decide that they will be disqualified. Though, this is complete BS. First of all, Rarity gives completely valid options Sunset could have explored instead.
Close the curtains, unplug her amp, give us a chance to deal with the situation.
Even if, I mean, like we previously established, these instruments don't have wires for some reason, so one of these options is moot, but still. Secondly, it makes no sense for the principals to give them a bad score for their performance, since Sunset isn't a part of the Rainbooms.
I'll be here. Just watching.
Thirdly, everyone, presumably including the principals, assumed that she did this out of jealousy or just because.
Sunset Shimmer, in a fit of jealous rage, knocked out Rainbow Dash mid-guitar solo.
Therefore, shouldn't the principals do something about one of their students seemingly trying to sabotage or bully others? Fourthly, the Rainbow's performance was actually good. Sure, you could say that Rainbow Dash was being egotistical and hogging the stage light, but that doesn't make the performance bad on a musical level. The Dazzlings hypnotized the principals to let the Rainbooms make it to the finals, in order to manipulate Trixie into doing something about them. Then one of her bandmates pulled this lever to trap the Rainbooms in this room. So, what is the long-term goal here? I mean, from my experience, when you trap someone inside a place you don't intend for them to get out, there are only two options. A, they don't get out. B, they do get out. If they don't end up getting out, congratulations, Trixie and the Illusions, you're directly responsible for the death of 7 people. If they do get out, well, it won't be long until you're busted for attempting to murder 7 people. Judging by how she says this...
See you never!
Yeah, I think we may have just witnessed a straight-up murder attempt.
Maybe it doesn't even matter that we're trapped down here.
I don't think the counterspell would have worked anyway.
We then witness Rainbow Dash make a murder attempt herself, because from Applejack saying this,
Course it would have worked, Twilight. Assuming a certain band member didn't try to hog the spotlight the whole time we were trying to play it.
she deflects and avoids any semblance of personal responsibility by shifting the blame onto somebody else.
If you want to tell Twilight she's getting a little too caught up trying to be the new leader of this band, you don't have to be all cryptic about it.
Now that is pretty Sigma level 1000 if I do say so myself. And haha, yes, I get it. The joke is that she's being egotistical, but what Twilight says next is ironically even more egotistical sounding.
I should know what to do. How can I not know what to do? How can I have failed like this? I'm supposed to be the one with all the answers.
Like, holy crap, like, I know she's under stress and all that, but this wording is so egotistical sounding. Anyways, the girls start arguing, but eventually find out that the real counterspell was the friends we made along the way.
I don't think anyone is supposed to have all the answers, but you can count on your friends to help you find them.
Then the girls agree that they need to get the heck out of this room, only to be stopped by Spike coming to the rescue, where he pushes the door open. First things first, since Spike cannot reach the doorknob, does this mean that they could have just pulled the door the entire time? Or was this genuinely a mistake that the writers put in without considering the fact that Spike can't reach doorknobs? Because if it was a joke, then one would expect one of the girls to point it out. Kind of like how, I don't want to tread too far into the future, but in Roller Coaster of Friendship, the girls appeared to be trapped in this magical cell phone, but then it turns out they were just in a blank white room the entire time, and they point it out and make a joke out of it.
We were just sitting in a white room the whole
But
time.
here, I genuinely can't tell. Now, you may be thinking, oh, F- is stupid, he doesn't get jokes unless they're written out for him. Hold your horses, because Spike says this.
Sorry I took so long. I had to find somebody who wasn't under the siren spell to help me get you out.
This implies that Spike needed help to open the door, despite the fact that it seems like he did it himself. So did Vinyl pick the lock on the door and proceed to move out of the view of the doorway and then let Spike push the door open? Ooh. Help! Anyways, then Twilight asks,
Why isn't she under their spell?
with the answer being,
Never takes off her headphones.
and I very much appreciate the subtlety of Vinyl actually not taking off her headphones during the battle song. Also, good thing the Dazzlings didn't make their move while Vinyl was ordering something from the cafe, or at least, she takes her headphones off during the short when ordering something from the cafe, but not in the movie. Did she perhaps become more antisocial off camera? Anyway, since they concluded this,
I don't think it matters what song we play, as long as we play it together.
they decide to finally play Fluttershy's song and go up against the Dazzlings. Well, it's a good thing that Spike took his sweet time trying to rescue them then, isn't it? Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to this conclusion. Because all my points so far were about consistency and inner logic within the universe, it should probably show that that's just how my brain perceives things. So when I run into scenes and things that require me to examine my emotions instead, it's kind of hard for me. This is because at least points based on logic and objective observations, even if you disagree with them, have a basis on which to stand on and can be argued for or against. On the other hand, if I'm making a point based on my feelings, I don't think it really adds to the discussion in any meaningful way whatsoever. However, I have been sitting on this particular point I'm about to make for, well, forever since I originally watched this movie. So just let me know if you resonate with what I'm about to say. This scene and song give me goosebumps and tears. Don't worry though, because I can kill my emotions pretty fast. Let's just take a look at this objectively. Also, forgive me in advance because I am about to go a tiny bit schizo with this. I think the reason this song and scene invokes this kind of reaction from me is because it sort of gives me post-apocalyptic vibes. It's probably the sky turning orange and red. Skies aren't meant to be red, they're supposed to be blue. Even if we don't actively register it, I'm sure it does something subconsciously. But that's not all. In fact, that's just the start. If you put yourself in the perspective of the Rainbooms here, the implication here is that all your other friends are under a hypnotic spell, there's no adults around to do anything. Also, you realize that there's no more room for error. If you fail this fight, the world as you know it might completely come to an end. And on the other hand, imagine not being a member of the Rainbooms in this situation. Imagine you were minding your own business all day, and it started out just like any other normal day, but now the skies are red all of a sudden, and you have no idea why. Especially imagine being a person who lives in one of these houses and you see all this across the street. It all kind of feels claustrophobic and hopeless. That aside, perhaps it's the trippy transformation animations. Maybe it's these monsters. Or maybe it's because the Dazzling's eyes turn red, giving this Zalgo-esque imagery. Wait, on that note, why does the crowd look like this when this is just a high school competition? Why is the entire country here? Is this perhaps how many people the Dazzlings were able to hypnotize? That's terrifying. Though speaking of which, perhaps it's in the music itself. Without getting too much into theory, the Dazzling's part of the song is in a minor key, which makes it sound melancholic. That and the beat has an alternating time signature of 4/4 and 7/8, which is quite unusual and our brains may pick up on that. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into theory, but most pop songs you hear are in 4/4, which typically sounds like this. 7/8, on the other hand, sounds like this. And because most of us are all so used to the sound of 4/4, I think 7/8 might actually give our brains a signal we're not getting proper closure on the end of the last beat. For reference, here's the drum track to the song. I don't know, it feels kind of disorienting. Maybe it's just me. I mean, at the very least, it's definitely not conventional. Or maybe it's within the lyrics themselves. The titular line of the song,
"Welcome to the show,"
insinuates that the Dazzlings are inviting us into the show that they are putting on. And this show in question just so happens to be this hypnotic trance that makes you fight with your friends and emit negative energy. And we don't even know if they're ever planning on letting us free. So for all we know, when they are welcoming us to their show, they're really saying, "You are invited. Your soul is ours to play with for the rest of eternity." Then the next few lines,
"Our time is now. Your time is running out,"
is basically saying that this is their time to shine. However, with the added context that these girls have mind control powers, "your time is now" literally sounds like a death threat. As in, your soul's free trial of having control of your body is over, since we're replacing your soul's control of your body with our control of your body. Now, I admit I may be looking a little bit too much into this, but the line
"Now it's time to finish you"
also literally just sounds like a death threat. All of these factors just overloading your senses at the same time make it pretty tricky to really perceive what's going on to the fullest effect. Now, from the audio to the video to the background implications, I'm not sure whether any of this was actually the creator's intentions or if all of these factors just so happened to create this perfect blend of uncanny factors to freak me out. But there is a page on TV Tropes that lists off all the nightmare fuel from Rainbow Rocks. And while it's written super melodramatically, to the point where it's just kind of cringe, like for example, it says, "The end of Under Her Spell has a scene of the various bands fighting, which then zooms out from Adagio's gem and Adagio doing an evil laugh." Okay, like, if that's enough to be fuel for your nightmare, then, like, I don't even know what to say to you. But anyways, the reason I bring this up is because it does also talk about Welcome to the Show. So at least I know I'm not the only person in existence who isn't a little bit caught up in the creepy implications of this. Anyways, when Sunset picks up the mic, despite the entire movie revolving around her insecurities of not being a part of the band, she takes the risk anyways and sings about how she loves her friends.
"You're never gonna bring me down."
Now, on one hand, tears and goosebumps. But on the other, at this point, what can they do besides just sing? Perhaps the entire fate of the world rests upon this song. That's kind of a scary thought. I mean, I don't want to ruin the mood or anything, but it does kind of bug me how the mic falls and it rolls up the hill. Anyways, the Rainboom's song summons this giant alicorn thing, which somehow destroys the Dazzling's pendants. Then it turns out that the Dazzlings can't sing at all without them.
"Tell us that you want us, we won't be."
And we learn that,
without those pendants and the magic you brought here, they're just 3 harmless teenage girls.
Which is funny because Twilight is smiling while saying this information, but the fact that she subtly says the magic you brought here,
The magic you brought here from Equestria.
it makes it sound like she's backhandedly pinning the blame of all of this happening on Sunset, which kind of sounds petty, but it's also funny. So, anyways, this makes me think that they actually are like thousands of years old, and the magic that they get from these pendants are what make them look young. But too bad instead of getting any actual closure or answers, especially to this question from earlier,
But Star Swirl must have sent them there ages ago. How come they're just surfacing now?
they kind of just walk off. Like, this ending is super abrupt. What happens to them? Why isn't the audience moving or reacting at all? Does anything happen to the Dazzlings? Or are you just gonna let them get away? Even Sunset got shunned and got negative social XP. Are the Dazzlings literally just gonna be able to leave without consequence? Hello? Okay, did Twilight stay here overnight? Whatever, let's just get this over with.
Sure wish you could stay longer.
Twilight says her goodbyes on the account that...
But I have responsibilities in Equestria that I have to get back to.
Which is all crap since, you know, she was pretty much just fooling around with her friends back home. Plus, it seemed like she would want to play catch-up with Flash, but I guess not. Still, it's kind of funny how she says...
But now, I can go through the portal whenever I need to. This isn't goodbye. It's just goodbye till next time.
And without getting too ahead of ourselves, when the movie came out, people were complaining that this portal is a plot device written in for the sake of easy sequels. But surprisingly, Twilight doesn't end up using this in any installment after this, or not in any way that actually directly causes a sequel, at least. So, good job on the writers, I guess. The movie ends with Sunset officially joining the Rainbooms, finally cementing herself completely within the friend group.
Ready! 1, 2, 3, 4!
And, this may or may not have made me tear up a little. Moving on.
Shine like rainbow.
Why does the sound after the word rainbows get cut off? That's just frustrating. Shine like rainbow, singular? Is that a reference to how the song is called Shine Like Rainbows, plural? Well, that officially made me hate Equestria Girls now. I'm so glad that this movie is over so we can stop with this. I mean, it's not like this movie is gonna pull a cliffhanger out of nowhere, is it? What's going on?
There's definitely something strange going on at that school.
Looks like I got a sequel to review now. Now, before we get to my thoughts on the movie overall and my attempts to answer all the plot holes at hand like I've been alluding to throughout this entire video, we have a couple more supplementary material to go over first. Perhaps most importantly, unlike the first movie, Rainbow Rocks came with a director's commentary.
Hey, this is Michael Vogel, VP of Development from Hasbro Studios.
You got Brian Leonard here, Executive Director at Hasbro Studios.
And Megan McCarthy, I wrote the scripts for the movie.
I'm Jason Thiessen, I'm Supervising Director for the movie.
And this is Ishi Rudell, who's co-director of the movie.
And like I said, it's actually really insightful. For example, they say this.
This is one of the things that I liked when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for a follow-up is this whole concept that that magic, the inciting incident was Equestria Girls 1 and bringing the element of harmony to this world actually had long-lasting effects that nobody even knew about until we got to the second movie.
This means that the concept of the movie was already far better than the first one, since it seems like they had an actual idea and a story they wanted to tell, as opposed to what was probably just make them human so we can sell dolls for the first movie. Also, they make this offhand remark.
It takes place a little while after that first beginning.
Yeah, how many moons is this?
How many moons after?
How many moons after is this?
Yeah, technically, how many moons?
I don't know. It's not necessarily the next day or anything.
6. It is 6 moons.
6 moons.
Yeah. That's going to be in a Wikipedia page somewhere.
Considering that a moon is understood to be equal to a month, that means that Sunset has been enduring this kind of attitude from her fellow students for half a year. Why not just start fresh somewhere else? Or heck, why not just stop going to school? It's not like she has any obligations as a pony hiding as a human. Like, what's anyone gonna do? Talk to her parents? Also, does that mean that the Dazzling saw this and it took them 6 months to do anything about it? Anyways, I found this pretty insightful on the thoughts behind the writing process.
There she's being a cool guy, tapping her feet.
Yeah, we didn't want to have her outright dancing.
Yeah. Keep her kind of cool, you know? She's a bit of a Fonzie.
Yeah, in an early bit of animation, she was like dancing and shaking her hips and stuff. It was like, is that really Sunset Shimmer?
Yeah, that's a little much.
Yeah.
That and how Sunset was apparently not in, or at least not as prevalent as she ended up being in the first draft of the movie.
Yeah, when we first started, we weren't sure kind of whose movie it was going to be. And then when we arrived at that idea that it's really Sunset Shimmer, that she has really a place to go. When we left her, she was sorry for what she did, but how does she fix that? How does she fit into this world as not an evil demon?
Actually, I remember when you sent us that email, you're like, I'm sending y'all the second draft tomorrow. I just want y'all to know Sunset Shimmer is huge.
Speaking of drafts, I really wish that they would have done something about this in a redraft.
By the way, I don't know what the application process is to get into Canterlot High, but it is quite lax.
Apparently,
quite lax.
You just have to walk in through that front door.
Hi, we're teens. Please take us.
Just because you point it out doesn't make the plot hole magically disappear. Though, I guess technically the Dazzlings could have just sung a tune for Celestia to let them in, so I'll give them that. But I can't lend that same leeway for Sunset's enrollment. Still, it seems like there's been more thought put into this movie when they mention stuff like how the battle song is supposed to be an inverse of the cafeteria song.
I do like how we did the reverse of the cafeteria scene from the first movie.
Yeah, that was such an iconic scene from the first one, and it was fun to flip it.
Hey, let's bring everybody together. Let's tear them apart.
More importantly, they finally addressed the elephant in the room.
It's a good old match cut.
This Taco Tuesday didn't sit well with everyone, right, guys? Uh-oh, here we go again.
Taco Tuesday smoke is back, y'all.
Oh, they love the smell.
Did they perhaps make the magic green on purpose as a joke? Surely they couldn't have gone through the writing, storyboarding, supervising, animating, and post-production process without seeing how weird this magic looks in green, right?
Hey, who are those guys?
Diamond Dogs!
Those are the weirdest students in that school.
They've clearly failed a few grades.
The only reason you would say that they failed a couple times rather than they are seniors would be if they are older than the high school age, which sure makes for a funny gag and would explain their stupidity in terms of digging in front of their schoolyard for whatever reason. But then we gotta wonder what the implications of them going awooga for rarity are. Let's just hope that the events of A Dog and Pony Show don't ever happen in the human world. Now, the only downside of this commentary was it points out observations that I made on my own, thinking that I was smart, such as this.
Another great parallel from the first movie here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A role reversal.
But the fact that they mention it here makes it seem like I heard this beforehand and lied about how I came to these realizations on my own. That sucks, but at least it does confirm my observations as fact. Anyways, like I promised about like half an hour ago, let's finally come back to this thing.
Little Easter egg here, down at the bottom.
What?
Oh, what's that? What game are they playing?
It's the Power Ponies video. Oh, wait, not Power Ponies. Power...
Yeah, whatever we would call it.
What are the
Power humans?
Power people? Power people.
Well, I guess that works.
Power people? Well, actually...
I think there's been some kind of mistake.
Wait. Who are these girls?
They're the Power Ponies!
I sure hope that someone got fired for that blunder.
So fired.
As one final piece of cool fact or trivia or whatever, apparently the Dazzlings were based on people the writer Megan McCarthy knew back in high school.
I like how Sonata she seems like she's being dumb, but really she gives the exact right thing to say.
God, who wrote that?
Are those based on real people, Megan, by the way?
Do you know people like that?
Do you know people like that?
I'm not sure to what extent she's serious or joking, but that's kind of cool if it's true. Well, I know what we're all thinking. That's enough straining our eyes from the screen. Let us now strain our eyes from the page. To tie in with the release of the film, there was none other than a novelization to go along with it. In fact, there were two made. When I was initially trying to collect all these books, I had to ask why and how Rainbow Rocks got multiple books dedicated to it when the first movie only needed one. Well, let's do some reading and find out. Despite being called Rainbow Rocks, this book is actually not based on the movie, but rather the prequel shorts. Now, you're probably wondering how they made a book based on an hour-plus movie and a book based on a collection of shorts that barely add up to 20 minutes, roughly the same length. The answer may shock you. They used a lot of filler. The book starts with Twilight back in the pony world missing her human friends. Then it mentions that Applejack is singing A Perfect Day for Fun, which means that this song also exists in the pony world, which isn't too crazy since it's previously been established that Race This Barn and the Cutie Mark Crusaders theme song also exist in both realms. But, does the pony world version also have the line, "Did I just come in last?" when it makes zero sense without the context of the music video? Anyways, the shorts A Perfect Day for Fun and Shake Your Tail are revealed to actually be Twilight's daydreams, resulting from missing her friends from the end of the first movie. That actually fixes every single little question and criticism I had about those shorts earlier. Though this book actually goes one step beyond and actually points out the Pinky Carousel. I appreciate that. What I don't appreciate are these lyrics in here. Hanging out with my friends, setting all the trends, check out this sweet emoticon. Anyways, the way that the book stitches together all those shorts is by making it so that Vinyl Scratch is the one who originally gave Rainbow Dash the idea to start the Rainbooms. Hence why she is on the cover of the book. I guess they just really wanted to make her a prominent figure in this entry. Though from here, the book is mostly just a retelling of the shorts that we already looked at, so I'll only bring up things that either fix plot holes or enhance the enjoyment of the shorts, or anything like super notable. For all the new stuff exclusive to the book, I'll save that for a future deep dive into books video. Anyways, the way that Granny Smith is acting in this one passage, she does not seem to be fit to raise 3 children on her own. Okay, Granny, one more time. When you accidentally sold my base, who did you sell it to? Applejack was upset, but she was trying not to lose her temper with her grandmother. Was it a man or a woman? Asked Applejack. It was definitely a woman, said Granny, smiling. Did I say woman? I meant man. Granny, she asked, did the man who took my base say why he wanted it? Was he a musician? Granny Smith looked surprised. A magician? What would a magician want with your old boots? Applejack exploded with frustration. Not my boots, my base, she shouted. And once again, if you're wondering how they made a book of a collection of the shorts and the adaptation of the full movie roughly the same length, let this example of direct copy and pasting shine some light. That and how the book also cares about cables and amps more than the movie, which satisfies the musician in me, but it was probably only put there to fill the pages with more words. Another thing to note is how the human versions of the Diamond Dogs are apparently still called Diamond Dogs rather than Diamond Dudes or something to that effect. I wonder what they did to get that nickname in this world. Though it's not all bad. It's explained that Rarity's piano was actually given by Trixie as a setback for the Rainbooms, and that she specifically took out the wheels on it to troll her, which explains this line.
What kind of person doesn't put a piano on wheels?
And it adds that Rarity actually did used to use this keyboard in the music room, but would have just preferred to play grand piano instead. No, it really feels like someone who notices all these inconsistencies and stuff like I was talking about was tasked to write this book, and they did everything in their power to actually fix all these wrongs, which I appreciate so much. Especially when most of these changes would only matter to people who've spent countless hours rewatching the movie and shorts, purposefully looking for things that don't add up. Because this book is basically the written version of the movie with the same plot, I won't do an in-depth summary or whatever since, like I said, I plan to cover all of these books as its own separate video eventually. However, once again, if there are any passages that I think are especially noteworthy or they enhance the enjoyment and or understanding of certain scenes, I will bring it up. So just like the movie, the book also starts with people arguing inside a cafe place across giant hills from where the climax of the first movie took place during the night. Wait, the book starts with people happily chatting with their friends in a fast food place right next to the school during the evening? Huh? They're even said to be talking about the Rainbooms' new song, which makes no sense since this scene takes place concurrently with the first movie. And according to the director's commentary, like we heard, 6 moons have passed between movies. But more importantly, the band wasn't even formed yet. They didn't even have a drummer. Also, in this version, the Dazzlings don't really seem to feed off any negative energy at this point. So all things considered, surely this is me jumping the gun and this is actually describing a completely different event than the scene in the movie, right? That seems to make the most sense. Let's keep reading. Seeing that this section is directly lifting the quotes from the movie, as long as this doesn't go on to mention the rainbow light thing that they see, which would confirm that this is in fact the same scene, we can actually take what I said earlier in the video. Either this is the first conversation they're ever having where they have to bring up all these key facts. A, they feed off negative energy. B, the energy in the human world isn't as good as Equestria's. C, they were banished from Equestria. D, they don't like being in the human world. Or they bring this up every conversation for whatever reason, and at least conclude that this is a conversation that comes up a lot, meaning that what looked like forced exposition wasn't actually forced at all. It would make the Dazzlings dementia patients, but that's still a plot hole solved. After all, with all the differences I mentioned, and how there's some dialogue not in the movie added here, this must be a different scene, right? Well, let's keep reading. That's when they saw it. In the distance, just beyond the fields of Canterlot High, was the faintest ripple of magical rainbow light. Adagio's eyes widened greedily beside her Arya. Oh. Congratulations, now you no longer have the excuse that these people were too under their spell to notice this outside, since it's not mentioned that these people were fighting in the book, only that they opened their mouths to drink in a wisp of fluorescent green light, without a mention of where it's coming from. Well, let's keep reading. A few months earlier, Twilight Sparkle had traveled through a secret portal. She was the first equestrian pony to come to Canterlot High. Are we forgetting a certain shimmering sunset? You know, as stupid as this book is so far, I will give it credit for one thing. It actually fixes the Dazzling's foyer conundrum. The intercom started crackling. Someone in the office was about to make an announcement. It was Vice Principal Luna. Sunset Shimmer, please report to the office. She burst into the office with a big smile on her face. 3 very pretty girls were standing by the secretary's desk. But on the exact pages that make me happy for a plot hole being solved, there are things that make me equally depressed. Sunset Shimmer practically skipped down the hallway to the office. She was eager to meet the new girls. Maybe they would become her best friends. She loved the Equestria girls, of course. It was amazing they were so friendly to her given everything that had happened. Still, she wasn't really part of their group. She wasn't in the band. The 3 girls exchanged knowing glances that instantly made Sunset Shimmer feel left out. Maybe these new girls weren't going to be her best friends after all. That's very relatable. But more importantly, it really put Sunset's thoughts during this scene into a much better perspective, which is a given since you can only do so much with flash animation, whereas you can be as descriptive and poetic as you want through writing. But let me compliment something for once. Then again, the girls gulped down their drinks, piled into Sunset Shimmer's car, and headed to the gym. How come they pile into Sunset's car when she didn't even have a license until the short Driving Miss Shimmer came out 4 years later? I commend you for attempting to solve the mystery of how these girls transport between locations super quickly, but still! Speaking of causing weird inconsistencies, just like the Diamond Dogs, the human versions of the Cutie Mark Crusaders also seem to have the same name as they do in the pony world. This would mean that cutie marks are something that you earn in the human world? But how? At least in the movie, they just call themselves the Crusaders.
Oh, the Crusaders are gonna win.
Which was a good job dodging the question, but because of this book, we have to deal with it now. Also, this gag during the sleepover scene is seen as a laugh-it-off moment with Spike, but here in the book, it's recontextualized in Sunset's perspective. Rarity held up her phone and took a selfie with Sunset Shimmer and Fluttershy in the picture. Gorgeous, she said, checking it out. Sunset was smiling happily in the photo. It felt good to be included. How could she have ever thought being an all-powerful, all-lonely she-demon would be more fun than this? If only the sirens could understand that, but Twilight would have to defeat them first. And that's pretty beautiful. Skipping ahead towards the end, isn't it quite interesting how it says, one more time the girls rushed to the door, desperately pulling at it, but it was no use. It was still locked. How are they going to get out? That was the exact moment when the door miraculously opened. Standing there were Spike and DJ Pon-3, holding a crowbar in her hands. She pried the door open. To say that in this version, the door wouldn't have opened with just a simple push from Spike, that means that the act of trapping these girls in here, in the book version at least, was a genuine murder attempt that would have actually worked. Anyways, I thought the wording in this passage was kind of interesting. Without those pendants and the magic you brought here from Equestria, they're just 3 harmless teenage girls, said Twilight Sparkle. Just then, Twilight Sparkle was reminded that she was also a teenage girl, at least for the moment. The phrasing implies that Twilight is not a teenage girl in the pony world, and because she is indisputably the girl portion of teenage girl, I checked, deductive logic would have us conclude that she is not a teenager in the pony world. And she is actually aware of this fact. So, what does that make her little blush and crush with Flash? In conclusion, in regards to the books, I think they're worth a read. Rainbow Rocks makes all the prequel shorts feel less disjointed and have a cohesive, thorough plot. And the main event includes more insight to Sunset's mindset, so that's cool. But that's enough reading. Let's get back to... What is it? Bad news, Crow?
You forgot the comics! You forgot the comics!
Oh, you. Bad news, Crow.
Let's start reading! The sirens are waiting!
Ugh.
Let's start reading! The sirens are waiting!
Well, I know what I'm having for dinner tonight. Crow. This comic is a prequel backstory that takes place in ancient Equestria and explains what led up to the Dazzling's banishment. It starts off with the Sirens having finished harvesting negative energy and planning to take over Canterlot next for, some reason. The answer pretty much sums up to be, just because we can. Though, I find this particular statement pretty interesting. If we're caught using mind control magic in the capital, it'll mean banishment, or worse. What could be worse than banishment? That sounds kind of scary, since the harshest form of legal discipline in this universe seems to be either getting turned into stone or banishment. Is this implying that Equestria, or at least ancient Equestria, practiced capital punishment? Anyways, when they get there, the Sirens see an advertisement for a music competition and realize that it'll be a great opportunity to feed on negative energy. Also, they say this. It's incredible. It's The greatest thing since sliced bread. What's sliced bread? They just invented it last week. Since sliced bread was first published on July 7th, 1928, I guess we could technically conclude that this comic takes place around that time. Anyways, the judges don't seem to be too impressed with their musical abilities and— wait a second, is that Chris Chen? Oh hey look, confirmation that Dr. Hooves really is a time traveler. Then we get to objectively the best part in the entire comic, and perhaps comic history as a whole. Sonata chewing bubblegum. As a result of her gum popping, Adagio gets the idea to come up with a brand new type of music called pop. And this pop music ends up actually hypnotizing the audience this time. Everyone listening to their music gets put under their spell except for Star Swirl the Bearded. Wow, these must be the Spa Pony's ancestors. In order to fight against them, Star Swirl tries coming up with some counterspell songs, all which end up failing. So he gives up on that idea and decides to magic the sirens into a different dimension instead. How he managed to lure them into place in order to be able to banish them is just anyone's guess. Though I guess the moral is, if you don't want the sirens to ever attack you, just don't ever host or attend a musical competition. Anyways, the comic ends with this epilogue of the girls being transported to the human world. Judging by how the buildings are modern in style like we see in the movies instead of like ancient Greece like the comic so far, and while I thought it was the pendants that gave them magical powers to look young despite actually being 1,000 years old, I guess that means it actually did take them 1,000 years or so to awaken. Therefore, this question from earlier—
Star Swirl must have sent them there ages ago. How come they're just surfacing now?
will literally never be solved and have to remain a plot hole. Anyways, like we established earlier, the movie did a great job establishing the Dazzling's characteristics and how they bounce off of each other. So it's kind of weird how none of those defining traits are really present in this comic. For example, when Adagio suggests taking over Canterlot, Arya gets all scared and shows genuine concern, which isn't really in character for her. I would say that 1,000 years or so gives a lot of room for a person's personality to change, perhaps even drastically so. But as we saw from the epilogue, there doesn't seem to have been any significant time that passed between the comic version of Arya and the movie version of Arya. Still, this comic is a nice supplementary material to the movie. It's quite funny seeing them small and pony-sized, rather than gigantic like how they're usually depicted. Also, it's interesting how in the movie, Star Swirl banishing the sirens was phrased as a heroic thing.
If the sirens had their way, they would have divided and conquered all of Equestria. But a certain Star Swirl the Bearded wasn't having it.
But as we can see here, he regretted doing so and wrote about it. Who he's writing this to, I have no idea. This is clearly not the thing that Twilight read in the movie, though it's always nice when you take something that's barely elaborated upon and even glossed over in the movie and add this extra layer of emotional depth into it. Though I think that's pretty much enough reading for the day. My brain is just exhausted. I'm gonna lean back on my chair and relax now. Oh yeah, I forgot that due to circumstances beyond my control, my chair is broken.
I can get you a new chair.
Bad news, Crow.
I can get you a new chair.
Really? You'd do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's actually very generous of you. Perhaps I had you all wrong, Bad News Crow.
Well, here goes nothing. Abracadabra.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
My pleasure.
Though, why does it feel like I'm sitting on something?
No reason. You found it, you read it.
We already read this one.
Maybe try, oh, I don't know, flipping further into the book, you idiot.
What? There's more? Now, this comic, while not specifically tied to Rainbow Rocks, I have no idea when else to talk about this, so we'll just go ahead. But before we do, full transparency, for the Sirens comic, I read it for the first time in my life, specifically for this video. However, this one, I read years ago before I even had this channel, and I think it's safe to say that from what I've seen so far, this may be the darkest piece of My Little Pony lore in existence. Like, it goes to places that's just depressing and like hard to read without feeling miserable. Now that I've built this up to an insane degree, let's give it a read. The comic starts with Applejack talking about how fun it is being with family during the holidays. However, Sunset talks about how she's lonely and wasn't really too close with her family. Interesting how we're getting a mention of Sunset's family for the first time. I mean, I know who her husband is. Anyways, Applejack messages the friend group, sans Sunset, to meet in the library to plan something nice for her. I wonder if they still have a group chat without her or if she was making a new one just for the occasion. At the library, we see Pinky on My Stable, and it's distracting how she has 72,480 friends to 13 likes on a post, already a day old. Also, how does she have multiple profile pictures? Not to mention how she has her schizo friends added. I'm just gonna let that slide for now. Applejack then suggests that they all hold slumber parties at each of their houses to make Sunset feel more like family. And when this is mentioned, Rainbow Dash says to Fluttershy, "You know, I don't think I've ever met your family," just to get cut off, which nowadays it means absolutely nothing because this joke doesn't work anymore. But I actually remember seeing this before Fluttershy's family was introduced in the show, and being kinda disappointed that this sentence was never finished. The first party they have is at Pinkie Pie's, where Fluttershy kinda goes crazy from playing a video game. Okay. Interesting how Sunset asks if this is how slumber parties usually are and that this is the first time she's had one in a while, which is confirmation that this comic takes place as a prequel before Rainbow Rocks. It's actually kind of nice to see the girls taking up on their promise with Twilight to take care of Sunset before the events of Rainbow Rocks to this extent, especially because this would have been when they were still on the edge about letting their guard down around her, and before she really had a chance to redeem herself. Anyways, Applejack gets a call from Apple Bloom, who proceeds to call her Piggly Wiggly, since that's Applejack's family nickname due to her playing with pigs as a kid. Heh, that's kind of cute. What's next? If Sunset is actively writing in this book for Twilight, that means that this comic takes place after Rainbow Rocks. So what were those slumber party comments supposed to be? Are we forgetting the slumber party scene from the movie? Let alone how excited Sunset was for one? This could have been so much more meaningful, but no. The next day at school, all the students start calling Applejack Piggly Wiggly, and Apple Bloom brings attention to this account called Anonymous, who exposed the entire Piggly Wiggly thing to the world. Wow, cool to see Applejack has changed her profile picture in between days. Wait, isn't this Apple Bloom's phone? Why is she on Applejack's account? The second slumber party they have is at Rarity's house, where they put on wacky outfits and sing, which results in Sunset feeling much more close with the girls. However, later that week, when Sunset gets to school, Applejack shows her that Anonymous has posted those wacky pictures Sunset took at the party. Cool to see that even the school faculty can't resist a little bit of student gossip. Anyways, because of Anonymous's profile picture, and because Sunset was the only one who had access to these pictures and knew about Piggly Wiggly, the girls accuse her of running the account, and I think this next part kind of needs to be read verbatim for the full effect. "We trusted you, Sunset. We thought you were our friend. How could you do this after all we've been through together? No, wait, you guys, I didn't do this. I could never hurt any of you." "But you did. You must have been pretending to be our friend when all along you were just after our secrets. You secret stealer?" No. I don't know how she got this stuff, but it wasn't me. I'm not this person. No, you're not. You're not the person we thought you were. You're not our friend. No, I am. I promise. This is it, Sunset. You're not going to take advantage of us anymore. I'm sorry, but you did this to us. Tell whatever secrets you want, but we don't have to listen. That's depressing! I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say this drawing wasn't a little funny, and anytime Fluttershy is seen crying is a welcome time. But still, this is miserable, especially considering how this was after Sunset worked so hard to put her past behind her, even with the entire school not really giving her a second chance. All that effort out the window. Anyways, the next few days continue on the same, with Anonymous posting everyone's secrets, even for people outside of the friend group, effectively tearing the entire school apart again. Because this is a tough situation, Sunset consults Twilight for help, and while one may assume that the Princess of Friendship should attempt to give an answer, she instead goes on some useless random tirade about the Wendigos. Also, the rest of the student body decide to give Sunset a piece of their mind, leaving her to break down and cry. Once again, I'd be lying if I said that this wasn't a teensy bit funny. But holy crap, is this a gut punch? But we'll get back to this later. Sunset reads some nonsensical ramble from Twilight and applies it to her situation, and tracks her friends down to talk things over. And just when they're about to come to the ultimate realization and solve the mystery once and for all and have the final showdown, the Cutie Mark Crusaders just come and confess that they are responsible for everything. Then we get to what I think might be the worst page in comic book history. The fact that these girls pretty much ruined everyone's social lives, and pretty much set Sunset's reputation that she worked so hard to redeem back by a billion years, just to look this adorable while crying, is some complete BS. And now you're hugging Sunset like this? This is basically if I went over to your house, destroyed your TV with a baseball bat, and decided to give you a hug. What? And of course the Crusaders get away with it because they're cute. Well, I'm cute, and I know for a fact that if I tried doing the exact same thing that they did, I'd just end up getting pepper sprayed and wake up in a jail cell. Anyways, they all forgive the Crusaders, and we end off on a nice holiday party. Wait, What was the whole point of Applejack going on that speech at the beginning of the comic, talking about looking forward to the holidays because she gets to spend time with her family when her only family here at this party are the ones she already lives with anyway? They could have at least put Babs and Sunflower here. Despite that one little consistency problem, overall, this might actually be one of my favorite pieces of Equestria Girls content ever made. Like, because the story revolves around phones and cyberbullying, it actually justifies the Equestria Girls' existence, since that's a plotline that you can only tell with humans and not ponies. Obviously, the basic story was an allusion to Ponyville Confidential, but I think telling the story with the same basic conflict in this format makes it feel much more real and immersive. Since nowadays, even if it's not to this extent, more and more people are unfortunately experiencing what this story is talking about. Also, less and less people can relate to being slandered in the newspaper, I guess. That, and because we've been watching Sunset's character develop between the movies and the books, and as the audience have the omnipresent knowledge of what she's thinking and how she's trying to better herself, it hurts all the more when we see her being wrongfully shunned by her friends and being treated like this by people. And while it'd be just straight up incorrect to say that her bad reputation is completely unearned, I think it hurts because we can definitely put ourselves in her shoes. Especially because all of us have, more likely than not, gone through situations where you're just misunderstood and nobody seems to want to give you the opportunity to tell your side. This is some actual emotional depth that the show rarely even reaches. That, and I probably enjoy it because Sunset's entire arc is basically an example of the break the cutie trope, which I must admit is a bit of a guilty pleasure for me to read and witness, har har har. That's probably why I can't help but laugh at these frames. The only negative thing about this, besides like everything else that I mentioned, is how the ending seems pretty freaking rushed. When the girls thought Sunset was anonymous, they cut ties with her and would have probably killed her given the opportunity. But when it turns out it was their sisters who were responsible for it, they forgive them right away. And of course, I get it, right? Their family, their kids, so blah blah blah. But the effects of what happened socially, emotionally, psychologically don't change. Therefore, they should have at least gotten a stern talking to. I mean, the only thing that really happens is they take the page down. They tell Principal Celestia what they did and get 6 months detention. That's stupid. No expulsion? Not even a talk with the parents? Just another example of Principal Celestia being useless as always. Go figure. And Bad News Crow, why do you like comics this much anyway?
Because they're called comics. Get it? Comics.
Anyways, speaking of things that came after Rainbow Rocks but before the third installment, we have the encore shorts, starting with My Past Is Not Today. This short comprises Sunset singing about how she's a changed individual, featuring this act of taking down her old fall formal princess photos that we saw in the first movie. While this is a cool callback / imagery, the pictures are not there in the principal's office in Rainbow Rocks. So, well, ignoring the fact that this is a part of the encore shorts and not the prequel ones, this could have been before the movie. I don't want to dip too much into friendship games territory just yet, but she's wearing the outfit from that movie. So if they put these back up just to shoot this music video, that means that they had to either dig these photos out of the trash or somehow get a hold of the exact images, presumably from whoever originally took these pictures or Principal Celestia, print them out, frame them, and hang them back up just to take them back down. Because she is throwing these out near the school entrance rather than the principal's office, it's entirely possible that they just reframed these up near the trophy area, which is why they aren't in the principal's office in the movie, which would be supported by the fact that the frames are different now. However, the wall decoration lines up with what the principal's office's wall looks like, but not the hallway wall, so also it's a little hard to believe that they would be too eager to continue to proudly display these photos of Sunset after she tried doing what she did in the first movie. Did Sunset perhaps pick these pictures up from the principal's office and bring them to the main foyer to throw them out because that was the nearest garbage can? Because in the first Equestria Girls movie, there was a garbage can right outside the principal's office. Anyways, I would be lying if I said her being rejected wasn't a little funny. Actually, it's very funny. Also, Sunset doing this at the end had people wondering if she's now an alicorn, or if she possesses the power to literally grow phoenix wings on command. Though, according to director Ishii Radell, it was just music video logic and has no bearing on actual canon. Wait, this post was made on April 1st. Sunset may be an alicorn yet. Are you ignoring this statement where she says the exact same thing on not April 1st? Anyways, I take this to be the final nail in the coffin for Sunset's redemption, which is beautiful. Did Starlight get a sick redemption song? Thought not. Sunset rules, Starlight drools. Friendship through the ages. Now, I could talk about how there's some goofy animations, such as Sunset being a hand on a clock, but there's nothing really insightful that I can add that you won't just get from watching it yourself. Is that Sunset riding a horse? I wonder if she can communicate with it on the account of her originally being one. No, she was originally a pony, not a horse. Okay, so then are you telling me that ponies in the human world look like this? And also, what the fuck happens if this horse goes through the portal? What if this horse is secretly a human from Equestria who went through the portal? Like, imagine being a human from Equestria going through the portal, becoming a horse on the other side. Now nobody understands you. People think you're actually a horse. And now they bring you over to a farm to spend the rest of your days. And also, congratulations, your lifespan just got shortened to a third of your original expectancy. And this sucks, because if a magical portal, for whatever reason, opens up in front of me, I'm probably the type to go through it to see what's on the other side. I don't want to end up like this. Life is a runway. There's not much to say about this short either, I mean, relatively speaking. It's basically just a montage of Rarity looking at people and fantasizing about them being runway models with her clothing designs. I think this entire short is cringe and hard to watch, but if this is Rarity's boutique and it's not owned by her parents or anything, and she's drumming up this much business, she must be the richest high schooler in existence or something. Anyways, why this is billed as a Rainbow Rocks encore short, I have no clue. I guess they just didn't want to make a third Sunset-centered music video in a row while they were under contract to make 3 shorts. Who knows? Technically, these were made more to hype up the release of friendship games rather than a wrap-up of Rainbow Rocks. But still, they have Rainbow Rocks in the title, so I had to talk about them here. It's kind of cool to see how much stuff was made for this movie, especially compared to the first one. I mean, the actual movie aside, chapter books, comics, a soundtrack album, prequel shorts, encore shorts, live action music videos that I would rather not talk about. And as much as I like this movie, and by extension the franchise, in case you couldn't freaking tell by now, I am getting a little bit tired from talking about this one thing for quite a bit. I believe I pretty much covered everything to do with this movie, so we can wrap it up and just talk about the theories I had about it and my overall thoughts on the movie. I mean, like, what's next? A stage adaptation? God damn it! So, according to the page for Rainbow Rocks on the My Little Pony wiki, it says, a stage adaptation of this film is currently on tour in the Eastern Hemisphere, which basically means, for starters, this page hasn't been updated for years, since it's obviously not currently on tour, but more importantly, there's a live version of Rainbow Rocks that I'm sure most people haven't even heard of before. So let me lay out what I found. First of all, the official Facebook and X pages for the show are still up for anyone to go back and visit. Here we can see some rehearsal pictures and promos such as Meet the Equestria Girls. DMS Production and Hasbro International Incorporated are proud to present the world premiere of My Little Pony musical Rainbow Rocks, adapted from Hasbro Studios' hit animated movie. With a sparkling new script by Hugh Osborne and dazzling direction and choreography from Jamie Neal, it's a show filled to the brim with singing, dancing, laughter, magic, and of course, friendship. I have no clue to what extent this sparkling new script differs from the movie, but are we to insinuate from this cast picture that Spike doesn't appear in it? Let's keep reading. This fun-filled show, for ages 2 to 96, will take you on an incredible adventure as everybody's favorite pony from the magical world of Equestria, Twilight Sparkle, joins forces with her human friends, the girls of Canterlot High School, to defeat the forces of evil, while Twilight Sparkle learns, along the way, that friendship really is magic. Why does it say for ages 2 to 96? Why not just for all ages? Are we ignoring all the 97-year-old My Little Pony fans? Also, interesting how Twilight is the one who learns that friendship is magic in this version. Unless if this is just a filler sentence. Luckily, we also got the synopsis. Shake your tail down to Canterlot High School and learn how the rainbow rocks. Those funny and fabulous Equestria girls are getting ready to enter their band, the Rainbooms, in the Canterlot High musical showcase. But there's trouble brewing. Former bad girl Sunset Shimmer just can't make any friends, while rival girl band, the Dazzlings, are clearly up to something. Why do they want to turn the showcase into a mighty battle of the bands? Are the Dazzlings planning something much more sinister? And will Sunset Shimmer ever be forgiven by the other students at Canterlot High? There's only one way to find out. Join the Equestria Girls as they try to defeat the forces of evil with the help of Sunset Shimmer and everybody's favorite pony, Twilight Sparkle. Sure, friendship is magic, but to restore the harmony, the band must battle. Aside from the fact that whoever wrote this seemingly forgot what the space bar is at a couple places, and also how there's a little odd phrasing here and there, I find it quite humorous how it says, there's only one way to find out. Which is literally just a straight up lie. They're lying to your face. There is definitely more than one. Since all these questions posed or answered in the movie, you could literally just... still, seems quite exciting. I wonder what else we can find. Oh, hey, look, the official website. There's a characters page on this site, and, Twilight Sparkle's the most magical and most loyal pony in all of Equestria. What do you mean, most loyal? Are we trying to get rid of Rainbow Dash from existence? Pinkie Pie just loves to laugh, and she loves being drummer in the girls' band, the Rainbooms. But will being in the Rainbooms be as much fun as Pinkie Pie hopes, or is there trouble brewing? Is that a Pinkie's Brew reference? Kind and gentle Fluttershy never wants to draw attention to herself, but sometimes being a friend means stepping up to the mark. Will Fluttershy be ready with her tambourine? The tambourine has like nothing to do with the plot. Good old Applejack, honest and faithful. At least they got her element correct. Why are these two together when Adagio gets her own slide? And what is with this art? Are they secretly characters from Winx Club or something? Anyways, there's also this YouTube channel that's posted a couple things to hype up this live show, such as this live rendition of Friendship Through the Ages, which starts off pretty good. But then... We'll come back to this. Also, there's a couple re-uploads of the Encore shorts, but with this added in the corner.
This video is for marketing purposes only. The real life show may be different than video show.
Well, obviously, I don't think anyone's gonna be disappointed by going to the show because they were expecting it to look like this. Anyways, as a franchise with such a large fandom, heck, possibly the largest fandom in modern history, it does take me quite aback that there was this actually big official production like this that was notable enough to be noted on the wiki, but went undocumented in the grand scheme of things. Especially when there was supposed to be an album version of the show. Not to mention how despite being billed as a world tour, it was cancelled after only hitting certain parts of Asia. What's this? A thread conveniently answering every question? I know this is old, but did anything ever come from this? Alas, no. The international tour was derailed by the sudden death of the King of Thailand when the country went into national mourning for weeks. Great shame. And I was never paid. The producers' inexperience did for the OCR as well, even though it was recorded. I mean, even though the album was recorded, it was never released. That makes me really sad. We could have had something truly great. So there's no hope of an album ever getting released? Alas, not that I'm aware of. Well, that sucks. So this means that the album is fully recorded, but is now just sitting in the vault somewhere. Who does that? Also, does this mean that if the show didn't start off in Southeast Asia, chances are that this would have been a much bigger thing? At least we got this super in-depth review of the show by ex-user Normandy Jaden. This entire wall of text is full of super interesting insight, but I'll just briefly mention the absolutely necessary parts that'll help us get a better understanding of what the experience was like for those of us who weren't actually there. The starting was marred a little by a couple of technical difficulties. Aria's mic was not working, though her voice was loud enough to resonate through the theater. And when the Rainbooms came on, Pinkie's verse in the titular song Rainbow Rocks fell silent due to another broken mic. Well, that must have sucked for the actors. Imagine being up there on stage and your mic just all of a sudden stops working. What even is the protocol for that kind of thing? Every actress did a spectacular job voicing and singing as their characters while acting on stage as them. The only character that had a little problem was Pinkie, due to Pinkie's style of changing her volume from speaking to shouting in an instant. This resulted in her voice occasionally blasting through her mic and the speakers in a deafening volume, sometimes during the songs, thus drowning out the instruments and other vocals. That must have hurt quite a bit. Many of the songs had a verse or two changed or added to match with the story being told. For example, "Shake your tail cause we're here to have a party tonight" was changed to "Shake your tail cause Twilight's going to meet us tonight," or something along those lines. That sounds funny. Too bad we're never gonna hear it. Anyways, speaking of hearing things, the review then talks about my little concern from earlier. When more than one of the girls attempts to sing together, occasionally one would off-harmonize. This was most apparent in Friendship Through the Ages, when one girl would accidentally harmonize a little too high. This results in the other girls attempting to fix the harmony but harmonizing even higher. This cycle would repeat until the girls got a chance to reset/breathe, usually at the end of a verse or chorus. There were moments where it would get especially bad. One that sticks out in my mind is the part in Friendship Through the Ages where the instruments cut out, just leaving their harmonies to run the song. And it didn't work as the pitch of their singing far outshot what the melody was playing. Interesting to see that this was apparently a problem during the actual show itself. Also, a strange coincidence how the one specific example given here is the one specific song we have footage of. Though this next thing kind of seems pretty cool. Sunset is put into a much more central role this time. The sirens are drawn to the school not by the giant rainbow battle of Equestria Girls 1, but instead by the negative energy that the students expended towards Sunset. This is further escalated by the fact that the Rainbooms clearly do not accept Sunset into their group like we see in the movie. They alienate her away, even when Twilight arrives. Not only that, but we visually see her being verbally attacked by the student body, and in a great plotline, see the sirens attempt to turn Sunset to their side. This was an exceptional idea that I think was really well executed. Well, that actually sounds awesome. That sounds slightly more interesting than the actual plot of the movie. The only thing that sucks is how we're never actually going to see this thing. Could this version possibly be any better? As the story itself no longer features Flash, why must the universe tell me about all these cool things without letting me actually see them? Let's move on before I find anything cooler that'll make me more upset knowing that I'll never get to see this. Now that we've got all the canon stuff out of the way, we can begin our speculation. And unlike how the first movie had plenty of unsolvable and frankly inexcusable plot holes, I only really see one major fundamental flaw in Rainbow Rocks. Sure, there are some unexplained things that I brought up, such as the mystery of how cutie marks work in the human world, but that really applies to Equestria Girls in general, so let's just save that for a much more specific deep dive theory video at a later date. Aside from that, there is that question that Applejack brought up.
How come they're just surfacing now?
And despite what the comic showed, I still think what I said about the pendants giving them magical powers to make them look young still stands. Why? Because as much as it hurts me to say this, since I loved Sonata chewing bubblegum so much, but this comic probably isn't canon. As is common knowledge, My Little Pony comics exist on a canon hierarchy, where they're all canon to the main show unless they eventually contradict each other. And eventually contradict each other do these comics do. For example, Star Swirl in the show isn't blue, and even if he was when he was younger and he just kind of grayed out over time, the flashback in Shadow Play Part 2 literally shows us how the Dazzlings were banished. Now, is it just me, or are these two scenes completely contradictory? Despite this flashback showing us things that contradict the comic, you know what it doesn't show us? What resides on the other side of this portal. Therefore, the Dazzlings may have actually gone to a place that resembled ancient Greece or whatever, and harvested youthful power for 1,000 years or so until the events of Rainbow Rocks took place. Mystery solved. Though, like I said, there still is something fundamentally broken about Rainbow Rocks, which is how the hell Sunset got away with what she did in the first movie, both on the level of consequences of the school and societal consequences. First things first, we must determine whether or not the story of what happened on the night of the fall formal made it out of the school. Like, even if the people who witnessed it firsthand didn't think it was worth telling their friends and family about the event at the risk of sounding crazy or being made fun of, surely people at least saw the rainbow explosion, since the Dazzling saw it literally across a few mountains. And surely the school was questioned about why there's a huge crater in the front yard, especially because there are people who live right across the street from the school. Wouldn't they be concerned for their safety or whatever? Though, I guess technically, even if people did see this, found other eyewitnesses who saw the same thing, it's not like they're gonna be able to convince too many other people who didn't see it of it happening. Like, if the few people who did witness this firsthand don't have any evidence saved with them, then the story kind of just dies with them since no one else is gonna believe them. Still, even if their words don't hold too much weight, you know what would hold a lot of weight? Video footage of the event. This is exactly why I made a huge deal of whether there's surveillance cameras that point to the main foyer of the school or not earlier. Because if there is, that must have literally captured everything that happened. I would say, just for the sake of my sanity, there must have been cameras that filmed everything that happened. Otherwise, what excuse could Celestia and Luna possibly have said in order to keep their jobs? So this would still mean that their employers and the owners of the school building, the government, now have witnessed footage of Sunset turning into a demon monster. So the question is, how is she still fit to be a student at this school? Or any other school for that matter? And I know I did say this earlier. That means that Sunset has been enduring this kind of attitude from her fellow students for half a year. Why not just start fresh somewhere else? Or heck, why not just stop going to school? It's not like she has any obligations as a pony hiding as a human. Like, what's anyone gonna do? Talk to her parents? But I think that the answer is that she's just kind of emotionally dependent on these girls, or the only place where she would be able to find solace in social interactions. Anyways, for the main question, I think I found the answer. And it's quite simple. Well, actually not really. Just try to follow my thought process here. In order to know why all of society around Sunset isn't trying to lock her up, we must first examine all of society around Sunset, including none other than her Flash Sentry. What do we know about their relationship? Well, we know that while Sunset bullied Fluttershy and Twilight in a pretty straightforward, outward manner, her way of bullying Flash was by pretending to be in love with him to become more popular. Now, let me pose this question. Tell me in which scenario you would be a little bit more pissed off in. A, you're just a normal student who's occasionally been verbally attacked by someone and proceeded to undergo psychic possession while they put your life in danger. Or B, you are an individual who has been romantically used and led on by a person who's been verbally attacking normal students occasionally and proceeded to make you undergo her psychic possession anyway. I'm pretty sure option B is just a teensy bit worse. Therefore, if you were in Flash's position, wouldn't you be furious at Sunset? You probably would be. Or you probably would be. I probably would be, but we're not Flash. We do not possess his cognitive abilities, and we don't process information the same way he does, and vice versa. So what do we know about his personality and mindset? Well, first of all, he has no personality, so that makes our job a bit easier. But we do know that his main hobby is being a huge simp. This is evident by how there's this girl who literally tore your heart apart, used you, dumped you, and you have even more reason to hate her now, and everyone will side with you if you ever decided to make a big deal out of it, but instead you decide to instantly rebound and move on to a different girl who you knew for like a grand total of 2 days just because she gave you 5 seconds of attention a handful of months ago. And when you are within the presence of this girl who used and dumped you, you don't even shoot her any dirty looks, you just kind of pretend like she's not even there because you don't have the balls to stand up for yourself. Now you're probably thinking,
he's not a simp. He's probably just a very forgiving individual who doesn't get angry very easily.
Would a very forgiving individual who doesn't get angry very easily act like this?
Why are you acting like this? I thought we were friends.
Yeah, and then you decided to come back here just so you could beat me in the Battle of the Bands.
Or this?
But he was under the siren spell when he was acting like that.
Okay, good point. But would a very forgiving individual who doesn't get angry very easily make fun of someone's entire life, purpose, and religion?
How am I supposed to paint my spirit guide when there's DNA and a treble clef in the way? Oh, I don't know. Ask your spirit guide.
Probably not. And even if this isn't how he usually acts, he probably only gave his buddy a piece of his mind because he's a guy. There ain't no way this simp was gonna say this to him if he was a girl. Now that I think about it, under the siren spell or not, I bet the actual reason he was pissed off here is because Twilight called him a friend.
I thought we were friends.
So from this, we can conclude that Flash Sentry is a nice guy simp. It makes us ponder from this.
It's okay. Flash is a great guy and all, but I never really liked him. I was just using him to become more popular.
We are to believe that Flash is popular enough to make dating him a viable strategy to become popular yourself in the school. But is he really that popular? This is kind of hard to tell because we're too busy focusing on the Rainbooms and Sunset, both movies, rather than seeing the dynamics of the rest of the student body. But I don't understand how popular he could have possibly been in the events of the first movie, when the entire school was segregated between cliques. If anything, I think Flash's popularity might actually be fear or respect. Why? Because if we're going with the theory that this man is Flash's father, which is only making more and more sense to me right now, it stands to reason that nobody is gonna go ahead and mess with a kid who has a cop as a dad. And while it seems to be implied that everyone at Canterlot High weren't too happy with each other before the events of the first movie, surely even if people weren't nice to Flash, nobody would have gone out of their way to mess with him. But why do I bring this up? Why do I bring up this dynamic? Well, judging by the fact that this cop is seen dancing and grooving on the job, even spawning a couple memes while at it, this seems to imply a couple things. 1, he likes his job enough to not be miserable while doing it. 2, if he's this relaxed, he's clearly been on the force for a while. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know anything about like how police forces operate, but what I'm trying to get at is that this guy probably isn't a low-ranking officer. If both of the implications I listed are true, that means that this guy is probably decently up on the ranking, meaning that he has at least some power over the police force and, by extension, the justice system. Now, tying this back to the government, if they are in possession of a Demon Sunset footage thing, they would probably want to do something about Sunset, whether it be questioning her or locking her up or doing experiments on her, etc. Now, think about this, right? What if the government was about to punish Sunset? Flash Sentry caught wind of this. He asked his dad to use his power in the Force to not punish Sunset, or at least go very, very easy on her. And from that, the government decided to cover up everything that happened that night. Mind blown, right? In summary, Flash is a simp for Sunset. Flash has government connections. Therefore, even with evidence to go against Sunset, the government simps for Sunset. It pretty much makes perfect sense. Now, is this what the writers were intending in the background? Of course not. But a part of me isn't satisfied with that as the overall answer. My brain likes to think that sometimes fictional universes outgrow the writers and kind of develop a life of their own. As in, there's a point where your fictional world gets so immersive and well written that as a writer, that you stop telling your characters what to do and your characters start telling you what to write. And that's basically how I see this theory slash headcanon or whatever this was. Even if this made like no sense, blame the movie for making me make weird conclusions. Because I'd rather have an answer that involves grasping at straws as opposed to no answer whatsoever. I'll just go ahead and say what we're all thinking. Rainbow Rocks is way better than the first Equestria Girls. Like, on an objective and measurable level. The soundtrack is better, the animation is better, there's actual character development, cooler visuals, more dynamic lighting, fuller backgrounds, the colors are much more vibrant, there's new interesting characters as opposed to alternate versions of already existing characters, etc. Now, you may like the first Equestria Girls movie more than Rainbow Rocks due to personal emotional attachment, like nostalgia, for example. Fair enough, nothing wrong with that at all. But you can't deny how there are actually objective and logical improvements in this one. I'm not sure if you picked up on this at all, but most of my main criticism of this movie comes from the aftershock of the first movie. I mean, for reference, like I said, I haven't got a single fundamental problem with this movie, unlike the first movie. Like, the only really big problem I have is that nobody but the Dazzling seems to react to that giant rainbow explosion from the first movie. That and the logistics of why Sunset is still in the school and not arrested or expelled or transferred or whatever. Hence why I spent extra time trying to figure out why. But if we're judging this movie in a vacuum and all you know is what the movie tells you, which is that Sunset used to be a troublemaker of some sort, not necessarily that she put a giant crater in the schoolyard and had to fix everything by herself, I guess it's fine. Well, that, and I noticed that the plot is a little thin. Not bad at all, but just thin. Bear with me here since I have a lot of thoughts about this. Whereas the first movie had songs too, they were used to advance the plot in the form of montages, such as how the majority of Twilight's entire getting used to being a human arc is pretty much summed up within this strange world. Like, there were jokes and visuals in it that could have played out as actual written scenes with dialogue rather than a music video. Similarly, the entire party reparations and preparations are advanced through Time to Come Together and This Is Our Big Night. Now, I'm not particularly in the mood to discuss my opinion on this form of storytelling and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, since I'll save my big rant for whenever we get to talking about a certain particular episode. But for now, I bring this up because whereas in the first movie, these montages actually kept things moving, in Rainbow Rocks, the characters literally just stand there singing songs. Not to advance the plot, but just to include songs. I'm not complaining since there actually is an in-universe reason for these songs to be sung, and it's not like they're just breaking the fourth wall by bursting into random music numbers. And the songs are amazing, but my point is that because the movie devotes such a large chunk of its runtime to these songs, when the runtime is the exact same as the first movie, there just seems to be less time for actual things such as world building to happen. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, the songs are pretty much a huge part of what makes this movie so memorable for everyone, but I just can't help but see it as both a blessing and a curse. Since there is a huge chunk of this movie that don't have any musical numbers in it, and these are the parts that actually expand on the lore of the universe. From Sunset trying to contact Twilight, to the pony scene, to the slumber party, up until the part where they rehearse their counterspell. Those parts are awesome and memorable, but after that, all we really have left in the runtime is a montage of the talent show to speed things up. Then the final battle, which is basically just an extension of the montage. Then the super abrupt ending. In fact, once we hit the 40-minute mark of the movie, the only location that we see in the remaining half hour is the stage in the auditorium and the stage outdoors. And I'm not gonna lie, that does kind of get hard to stare at after a while. In fact, I'd even argue that this movie kind of feels claustrophobic in a sense, especially because of how dark the visuals are. Not dark as in disturbing, but the fact that everything has intense shadowing and grayscale-ish backgrounds in the latter half of this movie, it's literally dark. Even this hallway looks ominous. You know, there are always people, both in real life and online, asking me, why do you like My Little Pony? You know that show's for little girls, right? And my answer is, because there's genuinely cool stuff to analyze like this. That and how awesome Sunset is.
I also play guitar.
I honestly think that Sunset's character development might be the best in the entire franchise. I already said most of what I wanted to say about this while we were discussing the comic, so I'll keep this short. But did you know that they actually went out of their way to redesign Sunset in between movies? It's kind of cool to see that in a franchise that doesn't really redesign characters between seasons to the extent some other shows do, they still did it for Sunset. Probably to subtly make her look less dumb. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but you get what I mean. Though, speaking of villains, while I was working on the script to this video, I talked to a buddy of mine and told him about the basic plot of the movie. More specifically, about the Dazzlings. Before I was able to finish my point, he said, quote, "Let me guess. The lesson they learn at the end is that they can use their musical powers for good." And as we all know, he's wrong, but that's when it hit me. The Dazzlings, or at least Adagio, is just genuinely straight up evil. And I think this is a great lesson. Sure, it's good to be understanding and patient and empathetic, but I'm not sure if you noticed, but there actually is genuine straight up evil in this world. And despite the movie coming out a decade ago, I thought the Dazzlings' motives, being power hungry and wanting to be worshipped, was such a breath of fresh air. Especially when like almost every modern Disney movie plays up the whole "they're not actually really villains, they're just misunderstood" thing. Not because I can't handle nuance and gray morality. Some of my favorite movies and shows are about these topics. But because if all media was about misunderstood villains and gray morality, it kind of gets rid of our understanding of evil as a society, which is bad, since, like I said, evil does exist, and it's nice to see reminders of what kind of attributes are evil, such as being power hungry and turning everyone against each other just so that everyone worships you. Now, if you allow me to compare and contrast Rainbow Rocks to its predecessor just one more time, I would argue that Rainbow Rocks does a way better job at establishing Equestria Girls as a franchise, far better than the first movie does. Firstly, we don't see the pony world until 20 minutes into the movie, unlike how the first movie begins and concludes in the pony world, which makes it feel more like an episode of My Little Pony where Twilight Sparkle just so happens to have to cross the portal and go to the human world, as opposed to something that's supposed to set this entire Equestria Girls franchise as its own thing. However, maybe it's just me, but I got so invested in what was happening in the human world in Rainbow Rocks that I forgot that these characters were originally supposed to be ponies. That means that even if these characters have the exact same personality as these characters, the writers were able to make the human version stand as their own thing anyways. This is probably because in the first movie, the rest of the Humane Six served as supporting characters, showing us one-note traits that the pony versions already exemplify in the show, such as Fluttershy being timid and a pushover, Pinkie being party-obsessed, Rainbow Dash liking sports, etc. Whereas in Rainbow Rocks, they're doing things that they literally can only do as humans, such as forming a band, which may be small since the pony side of the show isn't above temporarily breaking physics to show a pony playing instruments, but that's usually reserved for gags or background visuals. It would be nonsensical to have an entire storyline with these ponies forming a rock band. In this movie, they realized this and used this to their full advantage by putting these characters in situations you wouldn't be able to tell a pony story in. So while I was harsh on the first movie, since it really is unfixable and incoherent without turning your brain completely off, Rainbow Rocks, while it has its flaws, is so much better, and I'm looking forward to seeing where our Equestria Girls retrospective takes us next. If you want to see where I'm going next, feel free to support me on Patreon along with these awesome people. A little help really does go a long way. I've also got some news for the future, so don't you dare go anywhere yet. You stuck with me for a couple hours, so a few more minutes ain't gonna kill you. First of all, I made a second channel where I just talk about the going-ons of my life, so if you want more content from me in between these big uploads, you can find me there. As for future content on this channel, I've got some pretty big things planned, such as analyzing the main show in the style of this video. Not the entire thing in one go, but I'll split them up by seasons. They're by 3 seasons each for a total of 3 videos, or 2 seasons each for a total of 3 videos, and blah, blah, blah. We'll see what happens. It really just depends on how much time I'm willing to put into a video before I have to, like, call it quits and then just, like, split it off into a different part. Anyways, we'll be returning to our roots, complaining about the inaccuracy of toys in a decently sized video, I guess, which is gonna involve these little guys. That, and I've got some general cartoon videos, not exclusively My Little Pony related planned, but if you like the long form style of this video, I'm pretty confident you'll like these too. So as you can see, I've got a lot of work to get done, so until next time, this has been F- signing out.